All right, welcome everyone to, I don't know what class number it is, but this is the official, most likely last class for level 3. It won't be our last class together. We'll have a level 4 class, and I'm not sure if we'll get through all the material today, although this is largely review, but let's see how it goes. We do have to cover the advanced sexual energy practices, and you really can't understand those until you really grasp the whole system. So we're going to see how today goes, and then most likely we'll take, once we finish level 3, we'll take a month off, give you time to practice everything. And then those who want to be a certified teacher will be able to come back after a month and we'll go through that process. I'll be meditating during that month and what it means to create teachers. There was a request about doing schedules, like how to do a schedule for a retreat. And I actually found in my journals, my old retreat schedules, and they're really rigid. I thought I took pictures of them, but honestly, I forgot to upload those today. So we'll set that up for level 4, about how to run retreats, how we could do retreats together, that type of thing. So yeah, today the goal is to review all the material, help you to understand it the way I do at this stage, to the best of my ability to explain it, and then to integrate the advanced sexual energy components to things. Things would be obviously very discreet and nothing really personal, just how you take everything, bring it together to a whole new level. So I can tell you, we've been doing the lessons now. I think I figured out we started, I guess, May. So it's been about 5 months or so. And my inner being is not the same. I don't know what it looks like on the outside, but I can tell you on the inside, it's radically different. I've been practicing this hardcore so I can embody the teachings, share them with you guys. And it's all very real and very powerful and very worth getting into. So before we started, I said, if you had come to these teachings in a monastery, right? Like I'm on the top of a mountain. I spend today in the woods like I usually do on Sundays, hiking, gentle hiking, keep it relaxed for these teachings, and meditating and doing Qigong and Tai Chi, stretching, just like sitting there chanting on the top of a mountain, looking at mountain vistas. And if you were up here, it'd be a very sacred experience. The Zoom meetings makes it seem not so much. So I'm going to close my eyes in a moment, encourage you to close your eyes. And let me just say before I get into that, if you're watching this as a recording, this is the most advanced class of the system, and a lot of the review won't make sense to anybody who hasn't started. So just go back to onlinemonastery.com, look for the introduction to the Anahat teachings, and start from the beginning, right, with the introduction, then go through level 1, then level 2. This is the end of level 3, and then level 4 is to become a certified teacher. So this is not a place for beginners to be. There's no harm, but there's no reason really to be here. So this should be only for people who've been going through the training. And let me really commend sincerely all of you. It's very sacred, who have made it to this point, with me, who started the journey in May, whatever that date was, who are here now. So I honor that. So yeah, let's imagine, if you want to close your eyes, that you've hiked up to the top of a mountain. There's a sacred temple that we're all sitting and meditating together. It's a Knights of the Round Table kind of model, not a guru-disciple model. So we're all sitting in a circle. And I just invite you to find the right posture for your body now. And I encourage you to start engaging on a hot meditation. Just a few breaths for each meditation. So just a couple of breaths into the hara. And a couple of breaths up to the heart. And a couple of breaths, pulling the energy all the way up to the third eye region. And connecting to spirit. And let's just take a moment to honor these first 3 major energy centers. So if you go back down and descend, we have the descending triangle. And on level 2, we have the descending tetrahedron. And yet the attention is largely at the hara, not all the way down to the tailbone yet. And here we're becoming grounded and centered. So after you're hiked up to the monastery, you're going to kind of catch your breath and get centered. So let's release the past. And just breathe, fully present, descending for another moment. And then again up to your heart to acknowledge a space of love. Anahat is love. It's pure consciousness, conscious love. And in the human form, evolving conscious love. Your heart ideally fully open. No more suppressing emotions. No more closing down and protecting. So remember, fully grounded. Your heart fully open. And your connection to spirit. If you go back again to ascending. A space of pure consciousness. Pure peace. Pure awareness. And from there, the chin goes down just a little. We drop the attention down to the sexual energy. Meditation 4, we breathe into the sexual energy. And right now, this is unexcited sexual energy. You haven't stimulated yourself, most likely. And you're just being with your sexual energy just as it is. No judgment. Shouldn't be any different than it is. Just bring awareness to what is about you as a sexual being. And realize, because today's class will go into this, that this sexual energy is at the exact opposite end of the chakra system. And there's usually, for I think the majority of people, not an integration of that. And today we'll talk a lot about that. And then to pace into that, we inhale for meditation 5, from sexual energy up the back central channel to the crown, third eye region. Exhalation, circulate in that higher region. But notice as you pull the sexual energy up to the head, it has to go through the region of the heart. So really what you have is focused, concentrated energy from descending. With the sexual energy, we inhale and pull the sexual energy up to the heart, which is love. And that's a much more pure, or there's no judgment with the word pure, it's a more refined, it's a more subtle energy than the sexual energy. So we take the sexual energy that moves through the heart, and that becomes more of what we can call qi. So if you go back to the sexual energy, in Chinese, it's called Jing, Jing. And unexcited, it's cold Jing. And then when you inhale it up to the heart, we're sublimating it up into love, or qi, right? Or like Reiki, the purest essence of this energy. And then when the energy moves up through the heart all the way to the head for meditation 5, the sexual energy, purified at the heart, not that it's not pure at the lower, but once you sublimate it up to the heart in love and you pull it all the way to the head, that moves up into spirit, or Shen. So Jing, sexual energy, becomes Qi, pure energy, and then up to spirit, and actually Shen, spirit. So even level 1 is a very profound movement of working with the sexual energy. Then we inhale for meditation 6 up to the crown. Exhale, we descend all that down to the shoulder region, like a waterfall of just pure bliss and love pouring down into your body. Inhale below your navel down to the sexual energy. And then exhale that up to the kidneys, nourishing the body with that energy that's being kept more inside. And then recirculating it all the way back up. Inhale to the head. Exhale to the shoulders. Remembering this is the central meditation of Anahat. Meditation 6, the 6-pointed star. Inhaling to Hara, sexual energy. Exhale, send that energy up to the kidneys. And let's just pause there for a moment to teach, but just breathe into the lower, it's called the lower jiao, J-I-A-O. It's the lower region of your body. The kidneys go down to the, in a sense, the sexual energy and for urination. When we leak the sexual energy out, we drain the kidney essence by sealing that. And then when we inhale to the sexual energy and we exhale up to the kidneys, we're reversing what most people do when they're draining and depleting themselves. Here, when we inhale all the energy of spirit from above down to the sexual energy and exhale it up to the kidneys through all the internal organs, you're bathing all of your internal organs in that very pure light and love. And then inhale all that up through your heart, through your lungs, up your spine, to your head, to spirit. Exhale down to your shoulders. And then it just keeps going. Sexual energy, kidneys, up to the crown, down to the shoulders, to the hara, to the sexual energy. And just sense how peaceful it is when that's all that's happening, how quiet your inner being becomes. And let's just take a moment and just feel that. And you can just hold your awareness of your heart for a moment. Fully grounded, fully open to spirit, with a fully open heart. So that's the first half of level 1, which is pretty profound in and of itself. But now let's go through meditation 7. Inhale to the crown. Exhale down the ascending triangle. Inhale down the front central channel to the sexual energy, the microcosmic orbit. Exhale up the descending triangle. Inhale up the back central channel from sexual energy to head. Exhale down the ascending triangle. Inhale down the front central channel. Exhale up to the lungs. Inhale up the back central channel. And just feel this completes the microcosmic orbit. Up the back, down the front. And it reverses the flow of the energy through the star, which provides no words for how deep the integration is of ascending and descending, so that eventually ascending and descending, in and out, left, right, male, female, it all just starts to dissolve away. As you move into the second half of level 1, you just start blurring what you thought was reality. Meditation 8, upper body meridians. Inhale up the back central channel. Connect to spirit again, and then exhale down the arm. And then inhale up the arm. And exhale down the front central channel. So here, bringing the arms into the equation helps to integrate us back into the whole body, especially when we're doing out of body travel. And it makes the arms feel amazing. I was hiking today and my arms feel like air. It's like my etheric, I move my intention and my etheric body moves and my physical arms follow. Your body will feel so light and full of chi. And then inhale up the microcosmic orbit, up the back. Meditation 9, exhale down the front, lower body meridians. We'll inhale down the legs. Exhale up the legs. And then again, inhale up the back central channel to the head. Exhale from head to hara. Inhale down the legs. Exhale up the legs to the hara. And this just integrates you as spirit with your entire body, so you can truly be grounded in the same lightness and strength and awareness of spirit in the legs. And when you leave your body, you come fully back in because of that meditation. And it brings all of who you are as spirit to fill your whole body, which is one of the best things you can do for your health. And meditation 10, wings. We inhale up the core central channel, sexual energy up through the heart to the crown. Exhale, branch it out as wings, honoring your angelic nature, knowing yourself as being of love and service and compassion and joy and bliss and pure white light, just as pure as you can imagine yourself being. And sensing how sublime it is if you really get that. Meditation 11, integration. We inhale up in the core central channel and up the ascending triangle to the head. And exhale down the descending triangle to the tailbone along the core central channel as well. And feel what happens at the heart when we inhale up the ascending triangle, exhale down the descending triangle. Inhale up, exhale down with a lot of attention at the heart. This simply works to integrate everything very deeply, so above and below are connected right at your heart. And then inhale up the entire spine for the entire skeletal system, all your bones. Inhaling, meditation 12, structure. Exhale, relax everything down and let all that chi just fill your whole body. Every cell is nourished. The inhalations are packing the bones with chi. You're making the body a superconductor for divine energy. So there's no resistance in your system. And that relaxation and that exhalation really helps. And the exhalation helps to open us to level 2. As I move in and transition my awareness to the etheric plane for level 2, I'm not as much aware of the body with that last exhalation, that opening or the skeletal structure. I start to become aware now that I've carved out these energy grids, which are there, but now I'm highly aware of them. They're carved out of my mind. I've created impressions of these energy flows. So now sense the descending tetrahedron as we inhale to the hara. But we're not really focused on the hara, we're focused on the etheric body in the second chakra. So level 2, we're focused on the subtle geometries. the meridians, the nadis, Sushumna and Ida Pingala, which is the core central channel, and the two snake-like meridians that run up through the chakras. And here, when we're descending, we're embracing coming into our etheric body, helping to prepare us for etheric travel out of the body. Inhaling to the heart center, you can sense a star tetrahedron here in a sphere. And all the Platonic solids are embedded within that. You can sense the star within the star, the larger star tetrahedron from tailbone to crown, and the heart at the very center is its own tetrahedron. And the ascending triangle, ascending tetrahedron for meditation 13, 14, 15. All right, so the ascending tetrahedron. But also be aware of the descending tetrahedron because it's there in your awareness now, and the heart, and the ascent up. And then down to the sexual energy, the base of the descending tetrahedron. I can only tell you what it's like for me now at this level. I can't tell you what it's like for you. It might be different. And all that energy is just rushing up the spine. It's I can descend and put my attention on it at this level. But it's sealed, so it shoots up. And it just permeates the whole of the being. It's not just down there anymore, it's everywhere. And we'll talk about that today and how extremely pleasurable that is. When we inhale up, we're pulling energy up the back central channel. And like imagine a line of force for the microcosmic orbit or part of the tetrahedron, the descending tetrahedron. But as you inhale, just pull up awareness to the ascending upper tetrahedron. And awareness is back up in spirit. We're just using those lines of force to direct us up into pure consciousness, into pure peace, pure bliss, pure love, pure joy, pure oneness, where you know yourself as the self, where you know yourself only as a spiritual being who is pure love and pure pleasure. And then we inhale up to that and exhale down to the region of the shoulders, but keep focusing on the etheric grids. It's just hard to explain each one. Inhale down to the base of the descending tetrahedron. Exhale up to the level of the kidneys, the base of the ascending tetrahedron. Inhale up to spirit, the top of the ascending tetrahedron. Exhale down to the top of the descending tetrahedron. And keep going on your own for just a moment. Well, this is like when you're really feeling this is the perfection of your etheric body. All chakras fully open, all meridians fully open. You're aware of the sacred geometries. You're just simply aware that there's a star tetrahedral field that is not just surrounding your body, but it's manifesting your body. Remember, your body is the result of the subtle levels. The subtle levels are not the result of your body. Sensing the tetrahedron at the heart and the tetrahedron from tailbone to crown, but on the etheric level is much bigger than the physical body, actually. Meditations 7, whatever number that is on the level 2. So let's pull up to the crown, the top of the ascending tetrahedron. Exhale down that tetrahedron. And just that breath is a wave of bliss that expands and permeates down through the body. It's just like, it's like blessing of light and love down upon the human. And we inhale down the front. Let's call it the microcosmic orbit on the etheric level. We touch the sexual energy. At the base of that, as we exhale, it moves up the descending tetrahedron. And that just it's like a, I can't find the best word. It's like a spritzing when you spray a water bottle. It's like this, the sexual energy is disperses up the descending tetrahedron and just fills your whole being with just this beautiful bliss. Then up the back central channel on the etheric plane. I'm just pulling sexual energy up to spirit again. But then it's stronger when we descend down the ascending tetrahedron. So just practice the star reversed energetics on level 2 for a moment. So here you really want to be transferring your consciousness to the etheric body. Aside from the benefit of what the practice does, you're really transferring outside beyond the physical. And then engaging upper body meridian energetics for the arms. There's a diamond shape. When the hands are in Maha Mudra, when your hands are in your lap, your elbows form a sort of diamond shape, but feel the energetic level of that. But remember, we're letting go of the physical body here, so feel the meridians of the arms, and they should be perfectly clear and open. Practicing enough, there'll be no blockage in any of the meridians. And of course, we have the breath that goes, so we go up the back, down the arms, up the arms, and down the front. So just transitioning all of your attention to that, but on the etheric level. Simply contemplating what's there. And then inhaling up the back of the microcosmic orbit. Exhaling down the front, meditation. Let's call it lower body meridian energetics. And inhale down the legs with the etheric legs, which you might feel a bit out of your physical legs now. And up those legs. So remember the out of body practice, where we inhale, we go up to the head, a little bit out of the head. Back down to the navel region. But then inhale down the legs, take your astral legs out a little bit. Exhale up to the heart, but then just swish up to the head, inhale up out of your head a little. Exhale to the heart. but keep feeling like it's your etheric body out of your physical. Feet, hara, head, hara, feet. You're just lifting up out of your body, actually, the more you're engaging this. And then wings, energetics. Inhaling up the core central channel of your etheric body. And exhaling and just expanding the most glorious sense of wings, or that arc that you can imagine. It's 2 spirals. Emanating out the geometry of pure compassion, pure love, pure surrender and devotion. And if you're flying around out of your body, again, knowing yourself as an angelic being. And we inhale from the very base of that being up to the crown, integration energetics. Exhaling from crown down to tailbone, but not tailbone. This is the very base of the descending tetrahedron. So inhale up from the bottom to the very top. Exhale top to bottom. Inhale up the entire star tetrahedron. Exhale down the entire star tetrahedron. Awareness largely at the heart, but the astral, or I'm sorry, the more, let's use the word etheric heart. And here, my heart is just profound peace, perfect love. There's nothing happening, just pure being, pure peace, pure love. Easy, just held centered at the heart with nothing else going on. So the integration is ascending and descending, just merged into one. And then structure here is just embracing all the lines. The structure energetics would be meditation 24. Embracing all the lines you've been aware of. And when you exhale, they're glowing. I inhale to all that structure. I fill it with chi. I exhale, and it's just all pure light. And the etheric body is just a pure template for manifesting the physical. All right, level 3. Here we have out-of-body teachings, cosmic consciousness teachings, and samadhi and ascension teachings, and then advanced sexual energy teachings. Let's do a cosmic conscious moment. Sense your body and your etheric body, but remember the earth. There's a big planet here. Let's think of the moon and the sun, and be aware of that now. Mars, Venus, Mercury, the sun, and expanding out, the larger gas planets. And move out, Saturn and Jupiter and Uranus and Neptune. Like, just be aware, the Kuiper belt, there's this whole solar system, the Milky Way galaxy. And then with the Milky Way, you're talking billions of stars. That's happening right now. Be aware of that. You're not a body. You're a spiritual being floating around the universe, temporarily hanging out with this body. You're still part of the whole universe. And with samadhi, we pull our awareness inwards, pratyahara. We barely breathe with pranayama. So you can start from the beginning, asana. Your body becomes very still. Pranayama, your breathing restrained and very still. Pratyahara, you withdraw all of your attention into your very core of your being, not your body, but the very core of your consciousness. Dharana, we concentrate on the space of the self, the pure self. This is the you that you're concentrating on as spirit that utilizes your physical body, your etheric body, your astral body. But find you as spirit. In Dharana, concentrate there. Put all the sanyam power there. You can do it at the heart, or you can do it at the third eye region. Whatever works for you, just find spirit and concentrate there. And then dhyan, meditate there, meaning you're kind of merging subject and object. So you, the observer, and the consciousness you observe are the same being. And we'll go right to, go to non-samadhi. So level 1 is vitark, form. Level 2, we focused on vichar, the subtle energies, the subtle imaginings, the subtle grids. But now go to non-samadhi, pure bliss. And if you're feeling it now, you meditate on the bliss. You merge with the bliss. A non-samadhi, you become bliss. It's not that I'm observing bliss, I'm completely immersed in bliss. But there's still a me and there's still bliss in asmita samadhi. Focus on pure consciousness, on the soul itself. No mind, no time or space, no name or form. And really pure asmita, body and mind are just dropping away. A lot of attention going to the third eye. Opening the third eye. Gazing into the third eye space of pure consciousness. So we went through a non-samadhi into asmita, focusing on pure bliss, but the source of pure bliss. Asmita is the source of all that bliss. And this is still slightly dualistic. There's still the individual soul observing the universal soul. And then moving into the asam pragyat stages of samadhi, no subject, no object. Here the drop just becomes, as Rumi said beautifully, 100 mighty seas. But then he said, do not think that the drop only becomes the ocean, for the ocean too becomes the drop. So nirvikalpa samadhi, no imagination, which includes no imagination of ego, no separate self. This is the empty circle without a circle. It's you without individual identity. It's you as source. There's only source. There's no need to leave your body here, but if you were leaving with the asmita awareness, you would ascend right up into the very transcendent source. But that source is here now. So you don't have to go anywhere. Just move into the very essence of your being. And there you find God. This is the impersonal absolute. And from Nirvikalpa Samadhi, it's as if we descend back down to some level of body awareness again. Right, there's still a body, it's just happening. And there's still a heart. There's still everything about being human. And we move into Kevalya Avastha, self alone, which includes the body and the earth and the trees and the mountains and the lakes and the animals and the stars and the planets and the sky, the clouds, and the whales and the dolphins. You can become anything. You could experience any form. You can merge your consciousness into being a whale or to be the ocean. There's just no individual you. In Kevalya Avastha, you're all of it. You're the whole. There's no self and other in Kevalya Avastha. It's just self alone, one reality. It's just all one being. Everything you see, everything you encounter is just your own self. And at some point, which we won't dwell on much now, you notice you're one with all the human beings as well. And they're very lost. And a lot of them are really suffering. So just take a moment to realize you're pure, infinite love. And you're going to notice their suffering. And that's when you realize salvation is not an individual path. The atonement, while you're responsible for it, is not complete until all beings are free from suffering. And so your path doesn't ever end. And just take a moment in silence to feel what the profound implications mean of being perfected within yourself, but still being here. And what would you do? How would you live? What's your mission? What's your purpose? What's your dharma? Be sure not to focus on all the drama or suffering of the humans. Just come back to your sense of self. Just marveling at what you are as a child of God. Remembering you're not your own creator. You're just marveling at what you are. And I encourage you in this space to have no idea what you are. Your pure potentiality. In this state of Kevalya, there's no in or out. There's no inside or outside. Your eyelids don't make a distinction between in and out, nor does your body. There's no up or down, ascending or descending. And you're everything. So you're male, you're female, you're everything. You're a child, you're an adult, you're everything. You've been everything, You can empathize with everything. You're just simply the pure conscious peace and love and bliss that permeates the whole universe. And you're all forms, and it's all within your own being. You are the microcosm, and God is the macrocosm. And you're the part of God happening as you. Mm. All right, so we're going to shift gears into looking at the camera in class time. And I'm going to, we're going to shift gears, do some training manuals, show you a little screen share. So just take your time. Let's just go to descending to come out of this. It's breathing below your navel, perhaps sensing your body again if you weren't aware of your body. I'm starting to engage Ujjayi Pranayam. I can teach that to you, but it's where you can hear the sound of your breath a little bit, like in the back of your throat. And just mostly descending, coming down to the heart, being aware of my arms again, being aware of my legs, just descending, heart-centered, aware of sexual energy, aware of my head, just again coming back into the body. And take your time when you're ready. And take a moment to transition. I'm slowly opening my eyes. All right. Welcome, everyone. Okay, so I'm not sure where you're at with all that. It took about 50 minutes or so from when we started. So if you're practicing Anahat meditation, morning could be like a good hour on the cushion to go through all those stages. And then evening could be like an hour to go through all of that. And then we're going to start talking about the sexual energy components today. All right, so I'm going to assume everybody's here and you're fine. Let me know if you have any questions or comments or anything, but as you know, we can save all of that to the end. So let's take a moment, look at the websites. Let's get that open. Yeah, they say, I forget where I heard this. I think Ram Dass, maybe in Be Here Now. It says after, maybe it's a book. I think somebody wrote a book on this. Anyway, the quote is, after the ecstasy, the laundry. So you go into the deepest meditative states, you bliss out, and then you do the laundry. All right, so here's our website. Nothing's changed in the home page. On Anahat meditation. Okay, so yeah, when you get to this page, Anahat meditation, I like having 12. That's a very Anahat number. So I kept 12 lessons here that felt appropriate. And that is pretty much everything you need to know with the videos, right, to do the whole training. So you have your introduction. You have all the descending, level 1 meditations, 1 through 12. Right? Remember to keep practicing those. Like the system is, we'll talk about how the system kind of concludes in a sense. But if this is a part of your practice, then you do it, and mostly focus on level 1 for the morning. You can always do level 1 anytime, or any component of level 1 anytime. Then we have level 2. Look what happened over 5 months. So here we have, level 2, focusing on the subtle energies. And here, hopefully you'll see these 3 images on the screen for the first meditation. So you have like the physical plane, the etheric plane, the astral plane, or you could just say we're moving from level 1 to level 2 to level 3. So then, of course, you guys who are here understand the essence of level 2, which is these 2 videos, I guess, lesson 9 and 10. And then introduction to level 3, including all the out-of-body teachings. and how level 2 itself is helping you to get out of your body and to invoke the vibrations for sure. Crucial for before and out of body experience. So out of body travel, and then really important to understand samadhi, which we'll get into, we'll kind of review today a little bit. And then we got some space here for me to add today's video, and then there'll definitely be another one. But like I said, I'll meditate for a whole month on the teacher process and let you guys practice for a whole month, and then we'll see where we go. All right, and then you have all the audio. I think there might be one missing at this stage. I believe it's lesson 10 is level 1 and 2 there. Anyway, I think I have a little bit more to go, but for the most part, all the audio that you would need to do the entire system is here, including all the out-of-body teachings and a bonus financial prosperity teaching. It's a good idea to consider our life mastery course. I'm just going to plug that for a moment. On this website right now, instituteofhypnotherapy.com, a bunch of different projects or products, but here, this one, the Life Mastery course. I would highly recommend doing that if you haven't already to achieve success in every aspect of your life. Also, the Opening the Heart teachings we're going to touch upon again today. If you don't feel like you really know what that is, then I definitely recommend that. Manifesting prosperity. There's no reason to be spiritually illuminated and broke, right? So make a lot of money, have success in every aspect of your life, Life Mastery course, and peace under all circumstances. Okay, so all that stuff is here. And then of course, the major books for working with Anahat meditation system, Sacred Geometry meditation. And then if you're interested in the healing component of that, which bridges beautifully into interpersonal hypnotherapy, we have the sutras on healing and enlightenment. Okay, so just to give you the overview of how everything kind of comes together. Back here, scrolling down, this is important. Literature, instead of putting lesson 13 up at the very top here, so 1 to 12 is really everything you need to know. What we're doing now is a meditation or a lesson 13 that I'm calling Fruition. Which will include advanced sexual energy teachings, assuming we get to those today, but whenever we do, that information is here. So I'm going to open that and share that with you using screen share starting now. So feel free to download that one. And again, remember, lesson 13, Fruition, is where that one's stored. But eventually, once this is all done, then it's going to be set up differently for anybody to go through the system, and it might be like member protected pages. So right now you have access to this right on the website, while not a lot of people know about the system. Okay, let's stop sharing that. We'll start sharing PDF. All right, so we have, we're going to start with the Oxfording pictures as a review. No, we're in the right spot. All right, I wanted to review these to put everything into perspective today. All right, I'll go through everything as an overview relatively quickly. All right, so when we start the spiritual path, seeking the ox, we're young, we're naive. So here's a boy or a girl, whatever. But here's a person with a whip and a rope, doesn't know why he has a whip and a rope, but he's searching for something, and he has tools, but he doesn't know what those are. So the whip and the rope are Vivek and Vairagya. I don't know which is which, doesn't matter, right? But Vivek is discrimination. We can discernment, the real from the unreal. And Vairagya is to let go of the unreal. And the seeker doesn't know anything about that yet. He just knows there's something more. So he's walking around in the world, waterfalls, rocks, mountains, whatever. But that's all he sees. Mountains are mountains, trees are trees. Everything is just what you would think it is, but something's wrong, kind of like the Matrix, right? You just realize there's got to be something more. Okay, and then this true spiritual path begins. Until you start asking, who am I? Until you really admit you don't know who you are, then you're still caught up in the illusion. Right, so here the seeker is looking for the ox or the higher self or reality. And hasn't found it yet, and is really in complete illusion, but has no idea except for this subtle intuition that there's got to be something more. And I really hope the Anahat meditation system over all these months has shown you there's a lot more than what the average human being sees. But this isn't the average human being. This person is awakening, right? Most people are asleep and they don't even know it. They think they're awake, but they're not. This person is starting to wake up, but has no real experience of anything more than the physical plane yet. Finding the tracks is when you start hearing the teachings, true teachings that lead you to source, to God, to self-realization, to enlightenment. The footprints are the teachings of the great masters, saints, and sages, those who walked before us, and we're wise to follow a spiritual path instead of trying to invent our own. And again, I didn't invent Anahat meditation. I do feel it is a sincere, legitimate spiritual path that brings you to healing and enlightenment, that alleviates suffering, and that really does awaken you to your true self in ways that I haven't seen in really any other tradition. The way this works, every tradition is unique, and this is unique. So I would count Anahat meditation as one of the paths back into God. Okay, so he's found the tracks, he's studying the teachings. Remember, each stage can take a good year or two when you're actively doing it, and ideally with some guidance, right? So here you're studying a lot of things. Eventually, you really need to make a choice. You need to commit to a path that'll take you deep. If you keep dabbling in a lot of different spiritual traditions, then you only get what's on the surface. You want to dig one well really deep, right? And if Anahat meditation is what helps to guide you to the very essence of samadhi, then that would be a wise choice. But if you said, all right, Anahat isn't what's going to take me fully there, then let's say you're Christian, right? You would just follow Christ all the way into samadhi, but either way, you're going to go there. The point is to find one path that you really trust. And of course, you're listening to who you are, right? And being yourself as you go. The first glimpse of the ox, when these kind of experiences begin occurring, it's when the mystical experiences start to kick in. But this first big one is when you're going to experience nothing but light. It's everything just becomes pure oneness. It's a glimpse of samadhi. It's a glimpse of the true self. It's a glimpse of perfection, and it'll last for possibly even only hours or days, and then it'll go away. It's like the whole room being nothing but light for 4 days, and then it'll become more or less dark again, dark as far as the illusion of time and space, of form, right? Of differentiated form, meaning many, not oneness, but a whole lot of other, right? Self and other. But you'll get a glimpse of the oneness and you'll never be the same again. And some mystical experiences could be occurring here, but generally what this makes you realize is you don't live in absolute bliss consciousness all the time. And that's what will eventually lead to spiritual practice. All right, so this is really important to grasp, that if you're not engaging in spiritual practice, you're not necessarily moving through these stages. At this point, you need to start to catch the ox. Remember, the ox is reality, but reality is everywhere. What we're doing here is we're clearing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. We have to purify the heart, purify the body. We go through all the spiritual discipline. Remember, that's called sadhana. And this is when you force yourself to get on the meditation cushion. Your ego, the ox here represents your ego at this stage. Crazy, chaotic mind, emotions that need healing, a body that's not disciplined. You have no control over the lower self, that you're not trained, right? And in A Course in Miracles, it teaches nothing can be accomplished with an untrained mind. So you start going through real spiritual discipline, not just being kind of a spiritual person, not just doing things that look or sound spiritual. This is really intense spiritual seeking. It's real mysticism, which is the soul's desire to know its source, for you to know God, and for you never to back off until you are experiencing that all the time, right? You just can't live without the beloved when you start getting into this. Okay, so spiritual practice really begins here. Real, sincere spiritual practice, like hours a day doing spiritual practice. And possibly living in places, monasteries, ashrams, retreats, spending a lot of time in a retreat, perhaps a lot of time alone, to really focus on your goal, because nothing else matters once you've experienced the reality of things. Taming the ox, the fifth stage, you own a lot more of what you've been seeking. It's more peaceful. The ox is tame. Your body can sit meditation. You can breathe, and the meridians are more open, right? Energy is flowing. You feel pretty good. It still takes a lot of spiritual practice. So you're still on the cushion regularly. You're doing yoga or Tai Chi or purifying your diet, but you've made progress, right? You'll feel like after, this is maybe 5 years into your spiritual journey, that you feel like, hey, when I do yoga, I could actually, or when I meditate, I could sit for a half hour, right? Or I can do an hour and a half yoga practice without having to watch a YouTube video, right? You're a more accomplished yogi, a more accomplished meditator, whatever path you're on. And you might even start teaching a little bit right at this stage because you have some good experience. You haven't experienced the deeper stages yet, but you kind of know what spiritual practice is about, and you would be able to facilitate teaching others to some degree, but you have no real deep experiences of samadhi here, or necessarily, you might be having out of body experiences around this stage, but primarily those are definitely going to kick in around here. Riding the ox home is where the soul is much more deeply established in who it really is. And the ox, the body, the etheric body, the astral body, the emotional body, and the mental body are highly in alignment. So in Anahat meditation, your lower self, body, emotions, mind, or we could say body, etheric body, astral body, including your mind, which is the essence of it all. That's, or spirit is the essence of it all, but mind meaning that which needs healing. There's the lower levels don't need healing. They'll balance themselves out. And the higher level, spirit doesn't need healing because there's nothing wrong with it. It's your mind that's really the problem. But here, you spend a lot of time moving into Anand Samadhi, right? He's playing his flute. He's in bliss most of the time. He knows how to meditate on bliss. The human is doing well, right? Body is healthy and functional, and most of the time is doing really well. And the emotional body is clear. You're not harboring any negative emotion in you anymore. The mind is clear, right? You're brilliant, you're wise, you're smart, you're intelligent, and you live a really nice life. The ox knows how to live now. This is a sense in some ways of life mastery, but not a lot of spiritual aspirants focus on it. They just focus on the bliss, and then the life kind of falls apart. But here, the ox, meaning your human, should be doing really well, including your relationships and your finances, right? So just imagine your spiritual practice really coming to fruition, where things are really good. You're not done at all. There is no done, right? But you made a lot of progress. So this is pretty much Anand Samadhi. Then ox forgotten self alone. Here, a lot of time is going to be spent in deep meditation because you don't care about the external world at all, right? So living in the top of a mountain in a hut is not unrealistic. But, depending on how your life changes around this stage, by the time you start really spending a lot of time here, the focus is asmita samadhi, right? So the moon could represent the soul, or the spirit really, and the boy representing the soul. So it's like the soul focusing on spirit. And you're meditating on this for hours a day. It's all you care about, right? So isolation, solitude, silence, fasting, but not torturing the body. It's actually a more gentle, he just sleeps, eats, gets food, drinks, naps, sleeps, meditates, like just simple, 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 because you don't care about all the drama of the world anymore. And that's why the retreat idea is super important for somebody at this stage. There'll be people in monasteries who live there, but you'll never see them. They'll be just off in some hut meditating in the woods, and people in the monastery will bring them food, or they'll just either not necessarily part of the main community. Quite often during this stage of their growth. So if you ever feel the need to just get away from everybody, it's a pretty valuable thing at this stage. But it's not about where you live. It's about what's happening internally, meaning hours a day, your attention is focused on asmita samadhi. Okay, then ox forgotten self, or both ox and self forgotten. Both ox and self forgotten is nirvikalpa samadhi. This is ascension. It's when you're out of the body, it's union back into source, beyond the beyond, right? So this is God beyond the beyond. Yet the state of the mind here is empty. It's shunya. There's no individual self. And when you're holding that, it becomes effortless. It becomes your way of being, right? It's just clear. And how does it stay clear? We'll review that in the training manual today, or go into the fruition manual that has a bunch of review. You're holding nirvikalpa samadhi. You're, where is it? In the training manual, you're essentially the term yogas chitvritti nirodha, the nirod state, where you've withdrawn into the essence of your being, and all there is pure consciousness. So there's no more mind. right? That's how the mind gets quiet in deep meditation. You withdraw so deep into the self that you're not in body, mind, emotions anymore. They don't cease to exist, but in deep nirvikalpa samadhi, there's no awareness of them. Body and mind drop away. Right? So you'll know if you're achieving this on a regular basis when you're meditating and there's just no body or mind in your awareness for many hours. And then, remember, these are all stages. So you come out of it, but then you'll spend the next day more time in there, until eventually the next stage will unfold. So again, we're talking not just a glimpse of it, we're talking like a good year of being with this level of meditation. After a lot of time maturing the understanding of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, stage 9, returning to the source, here we go into the Asampragyat stages. And this is very much Kaivalya Avastha, meaning no subject, no object. So here there's no more boy, right? There's just trees and rivers and birds. And yeah, your body still exists, but you're not your body any more than you are anyone else's body or that bird or that leaf. I was on the top of the mountain meditating earlier today, and there was this nice little acorn there, and I held it. I'm like, oh, hello, like myself. Let's dig a little hole and we'll put you in the ground, and like many blessings to become a tree. But it's not like Matthew is giving this thing blessings. Like Spirit is blessing everything. There's just this all-pervading love and life, like capital L life. There's just blossoming into everything, and we're just part of that. And yeah, there's still this human, obviously, but the sense of I is not connected to the human. The sense of I is connected to the acorn and the trees and the mountains and the sky. You're everything. And in meditation, you can take the Sanyam power and move into anything. So you could say, all right, I want to connect to this person. And you don't have to leave your body necessarily. It's like remote viewing, where your consciousness just merges with that person. You're like, oh, I like that person. That's really sweet energy. And then you're like, okay, and you let that go and you connect with another person, or an animal or a tree. You're hugging trees because it's all one energy. Okay, so even though you still have a body, this idea of you is completely different than in the beginning of the path. And then, because of that, which we don't want to focus on too much today, when you spend enough time in that oneness, you eventually start catching on, because you already know, of course, that there's suffering. But when you're experiencing that oneness and then you're with someone who's suffering, it's a very different experience because they are your very own self. So you're moved to be of compassion. Your compassion moves you to be of service here. You're totally free, right? The big fat jolly Buddha there, totally free. Nobody could understand him. You barely could fit in with any person on the planet. These beings, are hardly known. And if somebody sees you, they're like, I can't quite categorize who this person is, but there's something different, but I don't know what that is. So you can't ever know what this person will look like or sound like, where they'll work, what they'll do. They might not be teaching the way, with words like this, but they're actively being of service in the world. But again, there's no sense of ego. So it's pure surrender, which is what we'll end up closing with the teachings today. Okay, so this is someone whose state of samadhi is effortless. It's just, you've earned it. It's you. Whether your eyes are open or closed, the sea of oneness is simply everywhere. And it's still a body, but you're not a body. It's still the one whole. And yet the body, the only purpose of the body in this stage is to be a communication device, to teach, and to be of service, to teach love, to teach kindness, but not, again, through your words, through your being. This paragraph, the explanation, I can't read the Chinese, but the explanation says, without recourse to mystic powers, withered trees he quickly brings to bloom. When you're in this state, anyone in your life will be blessed. Wherever you go, all you're doing is blessing. You're not forgiving anymore. If in the forgiveness models of spiritual growth, you have to forgive everything and everyone. This person has forgiven everything. So then what's left in that mental mechanism of forgiveness? Just to bless, right? So think about the word forgive. I am for giving. I am for extending love. I am for extending the kingdom. I'm for teaching the Dharma. Like, that's what you're for, right? And therefore you're not for giving because there's nothing to forgive. you're forgiving blessings, right? So all you're doing is blessing others with your existence. Okay, so Anahat will move you through these stages. I'm absolutely convinced of that, even though you could say, well, Matthew invented this, but I didn't invent this. There's no sense of personal self in that. There's just the system that brings you through these stages. With that said, we're going to do a quick review. Okay, that's today's training manual. One sec. This is the first training manual. I just wanted to review a few components. So now I hope when you look at this image, it means a lot more to you. Not just the precision of the body, but the fact that these grids are there, right? And that you could transfer your awareness to level 2 to awareness of those grids. And then you can keep taking that deeper because we go in samadhi from the more dense to the more subtle. So by following Anahat meditation through level 1, which is more the form level, to level 2, very much not form, right? The vichar level of, you could say imagination, but I don't think people understand what that word means. So better to just say the subtle energy bodies, right? And then we go beyond that into pure spirit, which takes us deeper into the samadhi teachings. But I hope you could feel, I know I can now, what it was like to go through the meditation that started our class today. This system brings you to all of that in a way that I don't know any meditation system that does. So never forget levels 1 and 2, because you can always just jump right to the samadhi stuff, but then that wouldn't be Anahat meditation. Okay, then what we have here is, remember, you have the starting date. So I hope you've been tracking this when you started each lesson. So lesson 13. All right. Yeah, I'm not as concerned, honestly, with lesson numbers at this stage. We have 1 to 12. Today is 13. We could say 14 and 15 are the teacher level. The numbers don't really matter that much, just providing the information. Because again, it's the information is what matters, and there's just a system to help to disseminate the information. So today would be your starting date for number 13, and data proficiency. It doesn't mean that just because you finish this class today, assume we get through all the teachings today, that you're ready to start teaching this system, right? So write the data proficiency and then give yourself some time to practice. I'm going to give it at least a month before I move into 14/15. I don't know if it'll be 2 different lessons. Let's see how that unfolds. I'll review. But anyway, remember that's there. Also remember, we have the chart of all the levels. So let's look at that briefly. We have meditations, lessons 1 to 8, meditations 1 to 12, takes us through level 1, largely focused on, if you're making that a samadhi level of meditation, meaning you're totally focused, you're fully present, then we have vitark samadhi, right? Focus on the form. And that's more than just form, of course, for level 1, but it does keep us somewhat connected to our physical body for sure. Then level 2, we move to the vichar level, where we're focusing on the subtle energetics. We have meditations 13 to 24, which are always hard to remember the numbers as we go through, but essentially they're the same. It's just focused only on the energetic level, lessons 9 and 10. We've covered stages of samadhi, and we'll review those a bit more today. 11, astral projection, and again, these numbers aren't totally accurate. Astral projection, lesson 12 or so, but I think we did that for 11. Then today we'll start touching upon, and we'll see where we go, advanced sexual energy practices. And we really have already touched upon cosmic consciousness and ascension. It doesn't really need to be its own other lesson. I'll just mention that when you get into level 3, you're focusing on the higher levels of samadhi, a non-samadhi, smita samadhi, and then the non-dual states of samadhi, sampragat samadhis. Astral projection, of course, you know all about that now, but your understanding of it obviously will deepen a lot over time. Tapping to the vibrations will become a reality. It might not be what you think it is. When the vibrations come in, they're very discrete, like rings of energy that move down through your system. And it's not just that your body is tingling or vibrating. They're very clear. There's no way I can't do the sound effect, right? But please don't assume you have that, because when you experience it, you're like, oh, that's what he's talking about. And nothing you've ever experienced feels like that. There's no human experience that feels like what I call the vibrations that precede an out-of-body experience. Okay, so we'll keep working towards those. The system will open your body, your whole being to that. And then the cosmic consciousness and ascension, this is the review, and then we'll get to advanced sexual energy practices. Cosmic consciousness, just always be aware that there are planets and a sun and this planet. The other night, the moon was rising above the mountain peak here, and Mars was right behind it. And it was just phenomenal. Like, I'm looking at Mars, like you are, and you're like this, like there's a cosmos, right? And your eyes can only see so much, but get a telescope or look in the Hubble Space Telescope imagery online and open your mind to cosmos. So when you meditate, don't feel like you're in a room. The room is just, it's not where you are. Like, go outside and meditate. You're on the earth and there's a sky. We meditate too much indoors and we kind of just think we're in a room. Like, get rid of those four walls and the ceiling and experience life as it is, and realize you are spinning around a planet in the middle of nowhere. And there's all these other planets. We're spinning around the sun in the middle of nowhere. And there's all these other planets spinning around, and moons and black holes. It's a big thing. So keep opening your mind to that, because like, you know it, but you forget it all the time. You should always be aware you're in the universe. And then, more than that, we've talked about leaving your body and expanding as big as the universe. You don't have to do that all the time, right? That's called Virat Swarup, the vision of the cosmic form. I've explained that. You can't really teach you how to do it. We've talked about it as much as we can, but be open to it. And then ascension is when all of this drops away, including the whole cosmos, and you're back into source, right? That's crucial for the enlightenment process. Complete ascension. It doesn't mean you won't come back to a body and keep functioning, but the ascension experience itself is crucial. And I don't know, maybe we'll have to spend more time in that class. I'm not sure how much you guys, if you were teaching this, would be able to talk about that. So we might spend more time in that in the future. And then, of course, certified teachers. So I just want to put everything into perspective today. Okay, that's that. Let's go to today's workbook lesson. I just put the word fruition here because I don't want you to be too concerned about what lesson number is this. All right, we're just towards the end of level 3 is what matters. So fruition is when it all comes together. All right, so imagine you started at the 1 o'clock position. We did that back in May 2020. I think that was when we started. We do 1, 2, everything's such a blur these days. 1, 2, 3, right? We move around here. We complete level 1. That's usually morning practice. And again, it might take like an hour, half hour minimum, I would say, to go through level 1. Ideally, give it a good almost an hour to be practicing level 1. And you could always do level 2 in the morning, of course. There's no hard and fast rules. Level 2, we repeat the same thing again on the etheric level, focusing on the subtle geometries, the energy grids, the etheric template, the chakras, the meridians, the nadis. So the attention is just being brought deeper, but also bigger. So you're expanding outside of your body so that the out-of-body experiences start happening a lot easier. Okay, and then fruition is after we've gone through all the samadhi teachings and you get a sense of the wholeness of this system. Okay, so copyright, right? Yeah, I don't have to say, if you're watching this, just go back to the beginning. But let me just say at this point, we're getting closer to teaching it. But I want you to spend at least a month practicing today's teachings before you even consider teaching it, because we haven't really got to what we're getting to yet, right? It was without the whole system, I couldn't explain what's coming your way very soon. Okay, so let's, I guess we're moving into that. I left the same picture in the last manual. The idea is just you have these 3 major layers of your being, the lower chakras, your hara, but that will include the sexual energy now. And for me, always. It's not ever not there, right? I'll explain as we go, but it's just like your physical heart is always beating. Your sexual organs are always there. Your sexual energy is always there. Is it always activated? Not necessarily in the earlier stages, but as you start getting into this stuff, it's always activated. It's a very hard path to integrate your spirituality and your sexuality. And we'll spend a lot of time talking about it today. Okay, so the lower chakras, You have your third chakra is at your solar plexus. We don't focus on that a whole lot, but remember it's there. And the third chakra is personal power. Second chakra, primarily the energetic, is pleasure. And first chakra is really just being grounded in your body, safe and secure, food, shelter, clothing, money. So yeah, I'm not gonna go through all the chakras here, but I hope you really realize descending is really about the lower chakras and being very functional and healthy in all the lower chakras. But remember, because we're going to get into it today, second chakra is pleasure. That's all. And I've had 2 clients recently where I got to use the fun example where I say, do you know what a clitoris is for? And it's funny that people don't know. And I was like, do you know, like, does it have any anatomical function for any purpose? It's not for urination. It's not for lacrimation or lactation. Like, what is it for? It's only for pleasure. Right? The system is designed to be pleasurable, and people are really messed up about that. They've actually, in A Course in Miracles, they've confused pleasure and pain. But your being is meant to be pure pleasure. And there's so much guilt and shame around that, and so much confusion, so much judgment. It's really crazy to see where humanity is at compared to where they could be with that. So we'll get into it today. Okay, and then of course we have the heart, Anahat, the essence of all of it, really. And I hope you'll always contemplate why Anahat is at the heart, not at the highest, right? Because Anahat refers to the energy of spirit beyond vibration, beyond time and space. Remember, Anahat means unstruck, that which is not vibrating. And yet, Anahat is really at the heart. Somebody put something in the chat pod. I need to always look in case you're telling me there's a technical issue. I'm not sure. There it is. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. No problem. All right. Moving on. So, yeah. Okay, that breaks the flow. You guys don't have to tell me if you have your own personal technical difficulties, but thank you. So the heart, love, and let's just get back into that. Yeah, so we have our lower chakras, very much the human and the sexual energy. At the heart, very much love, and we're talking about Anahat. And Anahat being the essence of who you are, but found right here, not found above and outside of your body. Anahat is the realization that God is everywhere and that the heart is the center of your being, especially when you're sitting in lotus pose, and that your heart is the heart of the whole universe. So that word Anahat is extremely deep. And then we have the higher chakras, the more transcendent aspects of spirit, which includes the throat chakra. And to keep that open, most human beings, from my experience, have made a separation between their head and their heart by closing the throat, tensing their shoulders, suppressing their emotions, pushing everything down in there. That division is horrific. So stop doing that. And the opening the heart teachings, which we need to review a little bit today, are all about that. Okay, so keep your throat open, keep your heart open, stop suppressing emotions, and study my opening the heart teachings every place you can. Again, we'll review them today because they're so crucial to what we're getting into now. Okay, and then you have your higher chakras, third eye, of course, and the crown. So the system embraces all 7 chakras all the time. You're a 7 chakra being. And today, we're going to really bring it to fruition. Ideally, we'll get to everything we need to cover by talking about the importance of the sexual energy. Okay, so tailbone, just like we have 6th and 7th chakra, it's kind of the same thing once you're up there. Same thing with below. As above, so below. Please remember that and look at the star in my hand right now. As above, so below. As above, so below. All right, so we have a 6th chakra, a 7th chakra. We have a 1st and a 2nd chakra. And just as here, like you might say 6th chakra is kind of you as soul. 7th chakra is infinite spirit. In the lower chakras, 1st chakra, that's where the physical sexual organs are. And I'm going to speak obviously more from a male body, but I believe the teachings are very much the same. But I'll recommend books. And yeah, for women, here's one of the books. So the Mantak Chia is one of the greatest teachers of the Taoist and Tantric teachings. He comes more from the Taoist perspective, but it's super valuable stuff. So Mantak Chia. And then the book I'm more familiar with, of course, would be Cultivating Male Sexual Energy. But then there's a book called, the book Cultivating Female Sexual Energy. I'm pretty sure, again, I haven't read it, but excuse me, I would encourage men to start doing that if you haven't already, Cultivating Male Sexual Energy, that book, and then his book for women. But it's really, for Anahata purposes, it's essentially the same thing, right? Because you put your attention down at the base of the descending triangle, and for women, you bump into your yoni, right? You encounter your vagina. You can't avoid that. You can't avoid that there's a clitoris there. For men, again, I can only speak from experience, obviously you bump into, I'm trying to use that word again, you encounter your penis and your testicles, you encounter sexual energy. So second chakra is pleasure manifesting, right? Remember, the chakras are a descent. So energy comes down through the chakras, through the heart, which is love. So spirit, through the heart, love, and then down through personal power, really, in the third chakra. Second chakra, pleasure. First chakra, the body. Love, pleasure, power, body. Let's not get too into the word power right now. Just love, spirit is aware of the heart open to love, loving yourself, coming down into your body, which is meant to only be pleasure, not pain, right? Not broken, but functional and healthy. Okay, so when you're focusing on meditation for sexual energy, you're really down into that and you're acknowledging it's there. The challenge as a guy, especially, my earlier 20s and 30s, when you're sitting in lotus position like that, and your hands are there, an erection is a really awkward thing. And you can study Swami Baba Muktananda, his book, Light Upon the Path. I think that's the name of the book. I haven't read it in a long time. Light Upon the Path. He was a very great, he's no longer in a body, but one of the greatest saints. And he would talk about in the earlier stages, especially when he was younger, he would sit in meditation, but all those hormones and all that energy is there. And he felt really bad because he was getting erect while he was meditating, and he's having thoughts about the other women he's meditating with. And he's like, ladies, like sisters, I'm so sorry. But he was in a stage of purifying that. Okay, so we are going to be talking about like monastic levels of working with sexual energy. And this isn't for everybody. You might not choose to go down some of the paths that I'm recommending today, but take what you like, leave what you don't. So anyway, we really start embracing the importance of sexual energy. So notice how we ascend in this ascending triangle up to spirit. And everybody's spiritual is all about that, right? That's great. But in Anahata, we also fully descend. So I mentioned before, your lower chakras and your higher chakras, your sexual energy and spirit are the opposite side of the spectrum. And that's why people are so disconnected from it. Either they're totally human and they are just physical, human, sexual beings. Just like sex for them is just a very physical thing. And they could have love and connection with another person there, but it's still very much on the human. Then we have the spiritual seekers who start leaving the sexual energy behind in a sense. They just focus on God. And they have religious ideas, usually that God is very pure and sex is very impure, right? And so I'm sure you can relate to what I'm talking about not having somebody who's fully integrated spirituality and sexuality. A lot of monks try celibacy, and then people are like, oh my God, celibacy. I'm celibate, but I'm crazy sexual. I'm brahmachari, meaning I walk with God in a path where I only want to make love with God, but my inner being is filled with sexual pleasure and bliss and love. There's no, like, why would you ever want to know God if you're not going to get the pleasure of sex? The difference between a brahmachari yogi is you have the pleasure of sex all the time. People just don't get that or know that or understand that. So we need to talk about it today. And again, we'll spend a bunch of time on it. So that's kind of the introduction. And I hope you'll hold these ideas of the lower chakras and really just the human sexual energy, the love of the heart, and at the crown, the purest essence of spirit. But pure doesn't mean the sexual energy is impure, although you might find you have a lot of purification that's going to occur if you start engaging this way of thinking. Okay. Um, so what do we have here? Our checklist. Remember, I told you where you should write down when you start the lessons and when you feel proficient in them. Honestly, level 3 advanced sexual energy practice, I don't know that you ever feel proficient in. It's a constant evolving state of getting to know who you really are. And it's so much more glorious than you can imagine. So it's not like you reach a state of what you conceived of. You're like, oh, I kind of knew what he was talking about. I'll get there and then I'll check that off. There's no checking it off. It's a constant evolution because you are evolution, right? You are spirit and everything is evolving, right? We know that. Science tells us it's all evolving. Mysticism tells us it's all spirit. That's not contradictory to me at all. I am spirit, which is pure and perfect, whole and complete, yet I'm happening, right? Like just like thirst right now is happening. Hunger is happening, digestion is happening. It's all just happening. The human is happening. I didn't do it, right? It's just there's a happening human being, right? The human is being. So I am being and I'm doing the human thing. That's a part of evolution. So I hope you never think that you're done with any of this. Okay, so a lot of this is review, and we're going to spend pretty quick review to get to what we'll get to. But anyway, it's slightly different table of contents here. So I took a few things out that aren't as relevant, and I added stuff that is relevant to where we're at now. Okay, so very quick review. Asana, body posture, right? So we know we sit in meditation and we can bring sexual energy and like a lot of sexual energy, a lot of sexual play, if you will, into the meditation experience. It's not like an anahata, like in Zen. In a Zen monastery, you get on the cushion, you sit, you stare at a wall, you breathe and count, or whatever your practice is. But pretty much it's as dry as breathing and counting, or eventually you don't have to count every breath, or eventually maybe you're using a mantra, but you're pretty much breathing and counting. In anahata, you have full permission to explore your sexuality on the cushion. Right? You can feel you can stimulate yourself. You can feel sexual pleasure. You can do it alone, of course, and you can do it with a partner. There's no rules in God. The only laws you're bound by are God's laws. And those are God's laws of love and joy and bliss and pleasure. In conversations with God, the higher God voice says to Neil Donald Walsh, he goes, you humans take sex way too seriously. It's like it wasn't meant to be so rigid, right? So if you're honest with yourself, I was working with somebody recently about shame with the idea of masturbation. I'm like, you understand everybody does that, right? Like, like why is this a shameful thing? But that's the whole idea. If we go back here for a moment to this image, the lower chakras and the higher chakras, meaning spirit and sex, are just so antagonistic to each other in most people's psyche. So this leads to the disclaimer and why we have a certified teacher concept here. Just because we're acknowledging we are sexual beings, it doesn't mean that anahata should be this hedonistic free-for-all, right? I still think and I sincerely believe we need to have professionalism. We need to be discreet. I wouldn't want meditation retreats and anahata for everybody to be stimulating themselves and stimulating others. Like when we're all together in a retreat, it's going to look like a Zen monastery. But what you do on your own is your business. But please understand, as we get into this stuff, I'm not encouraging a meditation center where people are being sexual with each other. There's diseases, now we have COVID, and there's just people's reputation. And to me, it's a very deeply personal process that you don't have to share with others. Well, I couldn't possibly verbalize what's happening inside of me, especially over these 5 months. So it's a personal process. The mystical union with God happens this is the mystical language. You hear this like in Evelyn Underhill's book, Mysticism. It happens in the privacy of the heart. All right, what's happening inside does not need to be shared with everybody because they can't understand it. Right? It took this long for me to explain to you a glimpse of what my internal being is like. You wouldn't have known, right? You wouldn't have known about these grids and all this stuff that I practice. There's no way you could explain to somebody, nor would you want to, what's happening inside of you on a sexual level when you're functioning at these levels. Okay, so with that said, so we bring the body into asana. Now, of course, you can be sexual in any position, right? And there's lots of them. You can study the Kama Sutra, but the main position is still lotus pose, right? Or seiza, or whatever works for you. If it's sitting upright in a chair, okay. But the importance of a straight spine is really important when you're engaging these practices. Okay, so just remember that. We have body posture. We have pranayama, breathing. The primary one is kumbhak, where we gather all the energy, and that's aligned, and we're holding the breath in a sense. That's aligned a lot with this intense concentrated power that we call sanyam, right? And the ability to direct it where we want it to go. So you take that much intense concentrated breath energy and you bring it down to the sexual energy. You got to be prepared about what that's going to mean, because it's going to really turn you on. You're going to feel a lot of sexual energy. When you bring all this love and light down to that area, you're going to feel it. I had a woman many years ago who found the book, I don't know really how, The Sacred Geometry Meditation, my book, right? And she started studying that, and she started practicing meditation, one descending, but she had been a long-term practicing yogini, so she knew how to go into ascending. And then she's like, I'm doing your meditation system, but I'm getting really horny, and that's messing with my meditation. It's like, well, yeah. Because you weren't embracing your full humanness. You were only escaping, transcending your humanness. If you're going to deal with the six-pointed star, you're coming down to the base of that descending triangle, you're going to notice sexual energy. All right, so pranayama is controlling that life force energy with the breath. That's crucial for cultivating sexual energy. There's a lot to teach. I thought we'd get through all this today, but I kind of see where this is going. Well, we'll see how far we get. We're going to go for 3 hours max, and then we're going to stop. So no break. Take a break if you need it. I'm just going to keep going 3 hours max, and then we'll open up to Q&A. But 3 hours of teaching, because I got to get all this out there. So when the sanyam power with your breath is pulled to the sexual energy, you can start cultivating that intense power inside of you. And you need to know what to do with that, or you're going to, excuse me, this is a horrible joke, or you end up molesting children. It's a horrible thing to say, but it's true. These monks who, the priest is usually the priest, right? They're told that the priests are a perfect example of why we need Anahat meditation. And why these people need to learn what to do with their sexual energy. They're told in their spirituality that celibacy is only about God, and you're not a sexual person. So what do? They suppress their sexual energy. What ends up happening after a while? We've all heard the stories, right? But that's tragic. So that's so wrong. So when I say celibate, please know, I do not mean non-sexual. When we say brahmachari, I'm sure there's a lot of yogis who for brahmachari means celibacy, like the way the priests are. I'm a monk, but I have 7 chakras, and you do too. This is only a reality check, right? Spirituality is about getting real. That's all. You're just being real. You're with the truth. You're with what is. I didn't invent any of this, not just the system, but I didn't invent sexual energy. I didn't invent the heart. I didn't invent chakras. I didn't invent meridians. I'm only aware of what's here, and I'm just telling you what's here. All right. And this is like the last major teaching, because the sexual energy is here. Deal with it, right? Most people are just trying to suppress it and cut it off when they try to be spiritual. And so there's those who are very spiritual who cut off their sexual energy. Those who are very physical, who are very in their sexual energy, but they're not really aware of God, right? People go to bars and clubs and they just go try to find a partner and have sex. Fine, but where's the attention? And we'll talk about that soon in the idea of Uttan Vritti. The attention is outward oriented, not God-focused. So I'm talking about being always God-focused, but also very beautifully, deeply sexual in the most fulfilling ways that you could imagine, honestly. I don't want to, that sounds condescending, but the stuff we're getting into is so much better than like anything I've even alluded to thus far. Again, this is like the final teaching. Okay, so pranayama, we're still using that, and that's going to help to put a lot of power into the sexual energy regions. Pratyahara, we withdraw the attention away from the external world into the internal world. So you become aware of your inner energy body, including your experience of sexual energy in your own being. Now, for a lot of people, that's very distorted, right? They've been hurt, they've been sexually abused, they have, I'm not judging, but I'm just going to use the word perverted thoughts, meaning, I don't know, I don't ever go. I don't know what what it's like in people who are really distorted. I hope you don't either. Like, like a pedophile, somebody who's abusing children. Like, I deal with sexual abuse all the time as a hypnotherapist. Women usually who are abused by their father or their uncle or their brother. I'm putting the word without trying not to be judgmental, perverted into that, right? Like, just realize 70+% of our female clients as hypnotherapists, from my experience, and other colleagues have confirmed this for me, have been sexually abused, which means a lot of people, men and women, have been sexually abused. So that distorts your sexual energy. And then the people who did that to you were very distorted. So when you're embracing your sexual energy, you've got to look at whatever's in there, whether you're on the victim or villain side of it, right? If you've been hurting other people, not just physically, but if your thoughts inside are, I'm going to use the word lightly here, but intentionally, sadistic, right? Now, S&M, that kind of stuff, I don't know what we'll talk about with that, but there can be very pure levels of practice with that. But somebody who's truly sadistic, who wants to really hurt other people, you got issues, right? That stuff's going to be purified. So you have to embrace your issues with this. And I can't talk too much about that, except I'm going to allude to the opening the heart teachings. You know what? Let's go into those right now. Yeah, that's appropriate. I don't have a page in this training manual for that. This is just an important thing to grasp as we're moving along. Okay, so opening the heart. We don't have an image here of the, do we have it here? Okay, let's use this. We got a chakra system, right? And we have the core central channel. You as consciousness have willpower, which is energy. Your willpower is Shakti. Your willpower is Chi. Your willpower is life force. When you suppress an emotion, so watch where my hands go. When you suppress an emotion, you are pushing down on your own life force. So energy comes up the chakra system and you say, I don't want to feel that anger, and you push it down. I don't like that sexual thought. You push it down. That sexual thought isn't socially appropriate. Push it down. I'm not supposed to have that kind of thought. Push it down. I'm not supposed to be attracted to that kind of person. Push it. You push so much away because you disown it. You put it into you create a subconscious mind. There really shouldn't be a subconscious mind. Yes, there's an autonomic functioning of the body, but a storehouse of negative memories and negative beliefs and negative emotions with a really distorted sexual being in there, that's not who you are, but it happens because we push it down. So remember, the opening the heart teachings are number one, stop suppressing. I can't emphasize this enough. Stop suppressing any energy. If you're doing Anahata meditation, you cannot ever suppress anything again. Now, what does that mean? Well, whatever comes up inside of you is what comes up inside of you. If it's anger, let it go, right? So number one, don't suppress. Then what do you do with that energy? Number two, don't express. Don't act out on it. That's the hardest thing when it comes to the sexual energy. That's what we're going to spend a bunch of time talking about right now. The more advanced sexual energy teachings are to apply the opening the heart teachings to your sexual expression. Now, it doesn't mean you never have sex with another person, but we need to talk about it. All right, so number one, don't ever suppress, excuse me, an energy that moves inside of you. Number two, don't express the stuff that moves inside of you. So what would that mean? You're sitting on the meditation cushion and you're pissed, right? So you're sitting in that position we have on the screen, right? And you're really mad at someone, but you're not suppressing emotions anymore. You're also not expressing your emotions. You're not venting them, right? You don't pick up the phone and call someone and yell at them that you're really angry, right? Same with fear. You're like, oh, I'm really scared sitting here right now. You don't suppress the fear and deny it, nor do you act out on the fear and be like, I don't know, let's say you're afraid that somebody's going to come into your house and steal your Oreo cookies or whatever. So you're like, oh man, somebody's going to steal my Oreos. I'm convinced of it. Now your mind is insane, right? But you're having those kind of thoughts and that kind of emotion and you act on it. So you start building barbed wire fences around your house and there's all such security systems to protect your precious cookies. You just let insanity run your life. That's how you create karma. And all you're doing is taking your stuff and making your life a reflection of your stuff, right? So I can't emphasize these teachings enough. Don't suppress your emotions. Don't act out on your emotions. When your lower self wants to do something, like let's say you're sad, don't suppress your sadness. You have to feel it. But don't act out on your sadness because your sadness fuels your thinking and your thinking says, well, this is sad. How do we make it better? Remember, your heart is the root of your mind. Whatever your heart feels, your mind talks about. So if your heart feels sad, your mind tries to figure out how to make your heart feel better. And once the mind figures out something that might make the heart feel better, like Oreo cookies, I don't like those at all. I don't know why we picked those. So somebody here likes Oreo cookies. You're pushing down the desire for Oreos, but then it gets stronger. You act out on it. When you feel sad, you turn to food to feel better. You've only reinforced that pattern. How does an advanced meditator purify that blockage known as a sanskar? You stay in the cushion, you don't move. You do the step 3 of this process. So number 1, don't suppress. Number 2, don't express. Number 3, relax your body, keep breathing and feel your feelings while pulling back and observing, right? So witness consciousness, right? We talk about this. I just can't emphasize it enough. Pull back and observe. And there's your lower self, right? You're a human being who is scared, sad, angry, and horny. Sorry, but if you sit on the cushion long enough, you're going to be like, that's in there too. Now, the idea in some of these more advanced teachings is don't act out on what it wants to do. That's very hard because it's an extremely powerful energy, right? Now, I'm not saying don't have sex. I'm not saying when you have a fantasy that's coming up inside and you're like, oh my God, that would be so cool if that happened. Go ahead, right? I'm not telling you how to live your life, but I'm saying you're on the cushion and you said you're on the cushion for an hour. Let's say it's an hour now. Right, an hour morning, an hour evening. I encourage you to amp up your game a bit here. Right, so practice for an hour in the morning. And while you're sitting there, chat pod, let me see. Again, I have to check in case it's something I need to know about. Somebody said, love Oreo cookies, but Newman's O's are better. Okay, that's cute. I accept that one. Thanks. All right. So while you're sitting in the meditation cushion for that hour, and you've got this feeling inside of you of some sexual thing that you want to express, for that hour, don't move your body. It's the same as any other energy, but you have to embrace all of it. So in A Course in Miracles is a very important line I knew needed to come out today. And it says, you need to give everything to God, right? When we practice Vairagya, letting go, I say, okay, I'm the observing witness and I observe anger. God, I give it to you. I don't know how to heal my anger. I give it to you. I invite the Holy Spirit into my heart to heal my anger. I give it to you. I'm not attached to it. I'm letting it go. Please purify it, transform it for me. I'm sad. God, I give it to you. Come into my heart, purify my sadness, and set me free. You do that with every single energy that moves inside of you, all the negative stuff and all the positive stuff. You have to surrender your whole being to God if you're really on the spiritual path. Nothing can be hidden. Nothing can be kept in the darkness. You can't say, yeah, I got this fantasy, but I don't want to play that out. but I'll give everything else to God. No, you have got to bring that into your consciousness too. Everything is to be brought into your consciousness. There's no shoulds, there's no right and wrong. But then you say, yeah, but that's a really screwed up thought. Like I can't, like let's just say, it's horrible, I'm sorry for the example, but somebody in the world obviously needs to hear it. Let's say you have, I hate to talk about it, thoughts of molesting another person. And usually that goes to children. It's freaking horrible. I'm sorry, this is my human speaking. Right, people have those kind of ideas, okay, and it's really repulsive. But when you think about having that type of thought, and I'm just going to the extreme here for the sake of teaching, you have a really extremely wrong thought, and I'm going to use the word wrong here, right? And that sounds like a judgment, but like that's not okay, people. You can't molest your children. So you have that idea inside you. What do you do, spiritually speaking, when you're sitting on the cushion with something that distorted? You have to admit it's there, because that's the only way to give it to God. You're like, oh, wow, it, not you, it. The lower self wants to do something that's really not okay. You can't keep suppressing it, nor can you act out on it. You just relax, breathe, feel, and observe. And you sit there and you have this fantasy and this distorted fantasy come up. Spirit will purify it. You let it go. You forgive yourself for having such a thought. Forgiveness is just let it go. Like, okay, yeah, there it is. Okay, let it go. And then when it clears, which I like to clear that thought now because it's so disturbing, that kind of energy. Let's talk about that. When a blockage, so those are blockages. When the blockage clears, it's a return to love and sweetness and kindness and your true strength and your true power and your true compassion, your true empathy, and you would never hurt someone else. You only honor everyone. Right? So we need to get to that place with our sexual energy, that we love ourselves and we love all beings. No judgment. Everything needs to be embraced. So when you get on the cushion and you, I had two thoughts in one moment. So let me tell you the first one. The great Saint Ramakrishna, when he would meditate for a period of time in his life, and I experienced this too to a degree, he would get into lotus pose and his body would lock up. It was like almost like somebody was like turning bolts, like, locking you in place. And you like can't move. It's almost like paralysis. And it's like, whoa, I am locked into asana. I'm locked into meditation. I literally am like stuck in lotus pose. You could get out, of course, but it's like it goes, okay, here I am sitting. I can't move my body. I can't express my sexual energy, but I can't suppress it. I can't deny it. So what do? I can just observe that it's there and open. So this idea of asana, or like Ramakrishna, like locked in meditation, there's nowhere for the energy to go but up the spine. Right? And then whatever you feel, you observe. Now you're a sexual being, you might have a sexual partner, you want to play things out, fine, like really, it's not about not being externally sexual. You might choose not to express it at all with other people for the purpose of intense growth. But again, that's going to be up to you. Some of you, are in a relationship and you can practice all this in a tantric way. But again, like I said, some of the stuff, take what you like, leave what you don't. You might feel like, I'm in a relationship and my relationship would be ruined if I wasn't externally sexual. So we're going to work to integrate this. Like if you guys are couples and you're doing a heart meditation together, you can definitely do this stuff together in the most amazing ways. But a lot of time, monks, nuns, yogis, yoginis, advanced practitioners go into intense retreat by yourself. Try doing, like my first retreat, I want to show you those pages of, the exact times, what I did every half hour every day. It was mapped out from like 5 in the morning to 10 at night. This is exactly what I do every half hour. And while you're just sitting there by yourself, especially in your 20s, tons of sexual energy. What do you do with that when you're only allowed to sit still by yourself? You just have to deal with it. I can't even tell you exactly what to do, except, this one general teaching. Don't suppress it, but don't move your body. Don't move your hands. Right? While you're sitting for that hour or half hour, whatever it is, even for 5 minutes, while that energy is like, touch yourself or go do this, don't move. What you're doing, and as part of the beginning of these advanced teachings, you're forcing the energy up the Sushumna. It can't go down and out. You're not ejaculating, obviously, when you're not moving. You're not stimulating yourself or touching yourself. You're just sitting in meditation, but whew, there's all this sexual energy. So, and now if you say, oh, you're not that sexual, it's not necessarily there. There's probably a lot more in your system than you think. And it's not bad, it's amazing. Sexual energy is so beautiful. It's just, again, very distorted in really most people. And I encourage you, if you're listening, to maybe put yourself in the category that it's still distorted, because you might not know just how pure and beautiful it could be. Like, everybody could use some cleaning up, right? So when we do meditation for sexual energy and we're meditating on that, it's going to start to stir it up. But as we get into this level, you will intentionally, if you want to, you'll intentionally stimulate it. You'll intentionally stir it up. And we'll talk about, how to do that in this practice. But once you get this practice, you understand all this, you can freeform, you can be creative, you can do whatever you want, right? You got a descending triangle. What are you going to do with that knowledge? Whatever moves you at any given moment, right? You've got a heart now. Hey, you know that, right? And what are you going to do with your heart? There's no rules, right, about what to do with an open heart now. I just helped you open your heart. Again, I can't tell you how to live. So I'm not going to tell you what to do to stimulate yourself, to each his own and have fun. But while you're embracing the sexual energy, you really want to consider, what is this all about, right? The reason we're doing this now is we've talked about samadhi. We talked about cosmic consciousness. We're going to take sexuality to a whole nother level now that we know about samadhi and sacred geometry, right? So I didn't think there was a whole lot to share today, but I always feel that way. And now I'm like, oh, there's a whole lot to share. So let's keep moving on. Take a drink. We're going to go for another hour. Just hang in there. Okay, so the major teaching, which is not written down in this training manual, practice and understand the opening the heart teachings really well, which are summarized as never suppress anything ever again. Like, you're not allowed to suppress. Don't use food to suppress. Drugs. It's okay to have food and drugs. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't smoke a little weed or something, but if you, whatever, you can eat food. But if you eat food to suppress emotion, you just suppressed. And that's so destructive to what we're working to accomplish here in this system. If you feel a little sad and you go and have a joint, you used it to suppress emotion. Right? Like, you can smoke cigarettes. I don't care. But I'm not saying, this stuff is good for you. But if you feel sad and you grab a cigarette, or you're anxious and you grab a cigarette, you've just suppressed. So please keep learning these teachings about not suppressing your emotions. Then number 2, don't act out on your feelings, right? When something moves inside of you, at least while you're on the meditation cushion, don't move. Because when the sexual energy moves inside of you, you can't, for that period of time, let it motivate your behaviors. You have to be with it, observe it, get to know it, be like, oh, that's kinky. Okay, that's in there too. Cool. All right. It's like, and just open. It doesn't mean you're going to play that out or experience that or that you are that. Let's say, God forbid, you had a homosexual thought while you're sitting in meditation. What do you do with that? Nothing. Does it mean you're gay? No, it's just there's a thought. And then you observe it and it passes. But it doesn't just pass, it transforms. And it transforms into something so much greater than any of those categories. So I'm going to say, I'm going to say what you're not. You're not straight, you're not gay, you're not lesbian, you're not bisexual, you're not transgendered, you're not, what's the other category? You're not queer. Like, all of these LGBTQT, you're not any of those. You're also not straight or gay. Like, what are you? You're so much greater than any category. I had a client recently, the topic came up about like labeling sexuality, and the person said, I hope you don't think I'm that. And I said, if I told you you were just that, that would be blasphemous. You're a child of God. God never said, yep, you're the straight one, you're the gay one, you're the queer one. You're not any label. So whenever an energy comes up inside of you, you observe it and let it go. The cool thing about that is you really get to empathize with every human being, and because remember I said, you're all the trees, you're all the plants, you're all the animals, you're the whales, you're the dolphins, you're the sunsets. You're also every sexual being, right? Like, you should know what it's like to be a mother. You should know what it's like to be a father. You should know what it's like to have every single, you're all of it. You're the whole. You can't and I mean that, there's a pun there, WHOLE. You are the capital W whole. You are the all. It's a better word when we talk about sexuality. You're the all. And that includes everything. So you would love every single, you hear about like the homophobia and there's something in the news this morning about, attacking homosexual people. I'm like, what's the matter with you people? Just love everybody. Just love yourself and love everybody. But the problem is people are so afraid of their own stuff, their own sexuality, that they just lash out on other people. They secretly hate themselves. So this is all about self-love. And it's all about not moving when you're on the cushion and letting the distorted sexual energy inside of you transform itself. Now, I'm not saying what distorted is. All right, because I'm definitely not saying like gay or straight or lesbian. None of that's distorted. I'm just saying it's a label that actually limits you. You can have that inside of you, but don't limit yourself, because as you unfold your being, you're really glorious and precious beyond belief. Like who we are when we're unfolded is so sacred. And once you know that, you would never hurt someone else and you would never judge someone else. Okay, so I'm for all of it, like literally capital A, all of it. And yeah, when you sit still in meditation, you're going to begin a process, if you haven't done this already, where you can't let your sexual energy act out on itself all the time. If every time you have a fantasy, you just act out on it, or every time you want to touch yourself, you do, or you want to make love with your partner and you do. Now, again, relationships, you guys got to keep that, keep the relationship healthy. But every time you act out on a feeling, you don't give it a chance to transform itself. So sit with it. Meditation forces you to sit with it. And, again, as a guy, when you're sitting there and your hands are in, right below your navel and your feet are right there and there's an erection, it's like, oh, that's really challenging to meditate with. And it's, I guess, harder for a guy than a woman, when there's an erection right there and you're sitting and that's there, like, what do? It's I don't know how many monks talk about this stuff, right? This doesn't seem politically correct. You're just not supposed to talk about this stuff, but everybody who sat in meditation has felt this. So again, spirituality is just about being real. Okay, so number one, don't suppress anything, including any sexual thought or energy or feeling. But number two, don't act out on it, at least while you're sitting on the cushion, because that stuff is so strong. And it's not that you're not meant to act. You do need to act, and you are going to have sex, and you are going to eat food, and you are going to act. But all right, let's relate this to food. You're sitting in meditation, and God, you want that bacon double cheeseburger so bad. This happened to me, actually. I'm vegetarian. I've been my whole adult life. And I had an acupuncture session once. I moved a lot of energy, and I was craving a Arby's roast beef sandwich. I'm like, oh, fucking Arby's, God. And I'm like, and it wanted it so bad. It's just like a sexual expression. It just wanted it so bad. And I sat on the cushion. Eventually, it's like, you know what? I'm going to go eat an Arby's roast beef sandwich. But at least I sat with it for a while. I got violently sick afterwards, so he learned a lesson. But the point is, don't just act out on everything inside of you. Be with it. Give it some space to observe it and to allow it to be there. If it's still there at the end of the hour, all right, if it's safe, go play it out, right? So don't get diseases, don't ruin people's relationships, right? But if it's safe and legal, if it's legal and appropriate and harmonious, great, go play it out. But spend time not suppressing it and not acting out on it. You need to give it a chance to purify itself. And I can guarantee you, like, the vast majority of humanity does not do that. Right? Just sit still and don't move while you're crazy horny. Just sit still and don't move. And eventually, and it's a rough path, it really is. But after a while, the Kundalini is going to awaken. So right now, what happens for most human beings is the energy just goes down and out. Ramakrishna called it a leaking bucket. He said, how can I show you God while you're still a leaking bucket? So we're going to talk today, as much as we have time for, about sealing off the sexual energy so it's forced to shoot up the spine. Kundalini essentially is hardly even happening for most people, even if you have kind of Kundalini awakening. If you're still leaking, all you do is let the energy go down and out, and you're just having lots of normal orgasms, or for a guy, you're just ejaculating like well, once a day or whatever, you're wasting enormous amounts of energy. And not just energy, there's a physiological change that occurs in you when you stop leaking. And leaking just means releasing sexual energy in a normal human way. I hope you guys know what I mean, but feel free to ask questions once we get to that point today. So the idea is to seal off the sexual energy and to be very mindful of how we're allowing the body to have orgasms. I'll talk to you about multiple full body orgasms for men and women and how to share that with your partner. And that's awesome. But it's the end of it is not the end of Anahata meditation is not just about good sex. The end of meditation, Anahata meditation, is about making love with God. And when I've said that to people at times, it's like he didn't mean that, like as if God's gonna be mad. That happened once. I had a client, and we were talking about sexual energy stuff, and I said, I make love with God, and she said, he didn't mean that. He didn't say that. I'm like, yes, I did. I totally meant that. When you're lying in bed and the goddess Kali literally comes and starts having sex with you, I'm not the only person who's had that experience. That's real. And that's awesome. But it's beyond just, sex with a god or a goddess, in some sense of form. This is sex in the deepest level is mystical union with God. I would not want to be a monk if it meant I had to cut off half of my being, right? Because again, we have higher, lower chakras. I don't want to only be a higher chakra being. You got these lower chakras. And they're actually, remember, second chakra is pleasure. You should be able to just lie in bed for hours, not touching yourself, just feeling pure pleasure and pure bliss. Why isn't that happening all the time? That is the natural state of your being. When you're a baby, I'll tell you guys this, this is sexual, but not overly personal. Natal regression with hypnotherapy. When I did my first natal regression back to really my only major one, you only need to do it once. I did a regression back to my birth experience. And what I felt was, coming into this little body, and I'm kind of feeling like I'm becoming this little body, but accepting it, and like, oh, this thing is kind of pleasurable. It's kind of nice in here. And then going through the birth canal, I could feel my penis, like I guess for the first time, kind of. And you could feel it, like my body rubbing through the birth canal. It's, who would ever say this, right? I'm not going to publish this on YouTube. Very pleasurable, extremely pleasurable. It shouldn't not be. Your clitoris, your penis, they're meant for pleasure. If you're really honest with yourself and you're really clear, your birth experience could be very pleasurable. It's not like sexual, like with your parent, but it's like it was the feeling of warm, moist, the vagina, the birth canal, and this body feeling warm and moist and having some level of sex, right? A sexual organ called the penis. All right, that's all there. Again, this is just being real and honest. So we're learning to embrace this on a whole new level. I don't know anybody who teaches this stuff in this way, so bear with me. All right, so yeah, before I move on, I want to really reemphasize, emphasize again, don't suppress anything, especially your sexual energy, number one. Number two, don't act out on it. Don't express it for periods of time, at least while you're on the cushion. Sit still, don't move, observe your stuff. Number three, what do? Pull back and observe. Watch whatever's going on inside. Relax your body. Keep breathing and just feel what's in there. Don't do anything about it. Just relax, breathe, and feel. Practice letting go. Practice surrendering. Just, okay, that's what's there. Breathe and observe it. You've got to let that energy start moving. It'll eventually start going up the spine because it's not allowed out. And it'll start carving the snake-like channels of Ida and Pingala Nadi. That's the only way you're going to know what a really active Kundalini is when you stop wasting sexual energy, because Kundalini and sexual energy are intimately connected. And then the other major thought to emphasize before I leave this slide is don't, how do you say it positively? It's the Course in Miracles quote, everything needs to be given to God. So what I do whenever I meditate at night, and I do it all throughout the day, it's not like only night, but definitely when I meditate at night, I finish dinner, I be sure the space is all ready, and then when something really ready to start, I say, Holy Spirit, choose for God, for me. Welcoming in the Shakti, the Prana, the Chi, the Holy Spirit, the breath within the breath, the life force of God, the divine mind of God. I'm saying, so that's what Holy Spirit means to me. Holy Spirit, divine mind of God, choose for God, for me. I'm letting go of myself. I don't care. Just you guide me tonight. And you should be doing that every moment. Just, God, you're in charge. You're in charge. God, you're in charge. I give it to you. I give it to you. I give it to you. And then when I give it to God at night, sometimes it goes right to the higher chakras, no sexual energy, sometimes right to the heart. But spirit leads every day, and the lessons are not at random. That's a Course in Miracles idea. The lessons every day are not at random. So you give it to God, and sometimes it goes right to the sexual energy. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. How are we going to play tonight? It's play. It's fun. It's beautiful. It can be very kinky, whatever it is. It's like, I was telling a student of mine, client recently, I was like, when I do that, sometimes I say, Holy Spirit, choose for God for me. And then I open, and whatever happens, I'm like, wow, you're really kinky. So whatever it does, but it's an evolving process. It's not like what I was doing even a month ago. Is what's happening now, or what happened 5 months ago, or 5 years ago. But the mechanism is the same. Holy Spirit, choose for God for me. Let the energy come down the descending triangle to the tailbone. And then it's going to work its way back up through. That's what's happening. Holy Spirit, choose for God for me. Let the energy descend into you. Love, meaning capital L, love, meaning God, does not wait upon time. It waits upon invitation. Love does not wait upon time. It waits for invitation. So you invite in divine love into your being. It will come in. It will never refuse the invitation, but it won't scare you, and it won't cause harm. So if causing harm would be to do, like it just won't harm you. So you might not feel it's working, but only because it would be too intense for you if you felt it the way it comes in. But the invitation was never declined. Just Holy Spirit, or however you want to say it, God, come into my being. But the idea of Holy Spirit, choose for God for me, it's like, I don't know how to bring God into my reality. I don't know how to bring the vibrations into my reality. But that which is my creator knows how to enter into my reality, but waits upon invitation. And the part of God that communes with, in Course in Miracles, God and his separated sons, the children of God who feel like, we're not one with God anymore, which is an illusion, of course, but we feel that way, right? We're in an illusion. We feel separate from God. The Holy Spirit is the part of God that reunites us with God. It's when we fell into hell, God sent the Holy Spirit right behind us. And that consciousness, that mind, that when Christ was leaving this world, his disciples said, Master, what are we going to do without you? He said, I will send upon you the great comforter, the Holy Spirit. To you, this would be for comfort or for healing. All right, so it's there, whatever you want to call it. But I just use the Course in Miracles idea. Holy Spirit, choose for God for me. Then I open to the descending triangle. The energy comes down and in. It does whatever it does. I'm not trying to make it go to sexual energy, but it's going to descend. And if your system is pure and open, it's going to, of course, go all the way down. And then it's going to work to come back up through you. And you're going to have an interesting evening, right? You don't know what God's going to do tonight, right? It might just be simple on a hut, just breathing and counting. Or it might be like, well, whatever. It can be really, really fun. What can I say? God is not as lame as I think a lot of monks made God out to be. All right, so we're back in the training manual for today. The fruition one, whatever number we're calling that. All right, so let's continue here. We're just doing Ashtanga Yoga. Here's what we're reviewing. Sit in asana, in the body posture. Start regulating your breath, which Anahat meditation forces you to do. In Dharana, start concentrating. And now let's just talk about meditation number 4. Concentrating on the sexual energy. So just putting all your attention on the sexual energy, on your sexual organs, essentially. But really just be with that whole area, like second chakra below the navel, ovaries, kidneys. Kidneys are intimately connected to that. Uterus, urinary bladder is right there. Just be with that whole area. There's a descending triangle right there, right? Ovaries, fallopian tubes, womb, I think that's how it goes. And then, vagina. But, and then the kidneys, same thing. Kidneys down to the bladder, down to the urethra. I don't think about these scientific words, anatomy, physiology words much anymore. But you get the idea. There's a descending triangle built into your anatomy right there. Be with that and just be with it. So that's meditation 4, putting all the sanyam power there. Remember, sanyam is just the combination of dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. Right? So we're essentially working to have samadhi with every meditation. right? I guided you today when we started. And when I did descending, I moved fully into descending. That is samadhi while descending. And then at the heart, just totally one with the heart. Practice samadhi with your sexual energy. So I couldn't have taught you that until now, right? We had to go through the samadhi teachings to say meditation for anahat is actually all the same attention you would put up here, right? When you ascend and you go to God, you're like, all right, all my Sanyam power goes to God. Now, level 3 advanced sexual energy practices, we're doing that at the base of the spine in the sexual energy. So, get ready for a fun ride when you do that. Again, someone put something in the chat pod. I can't access that right now. We might have to wait. Let me try one more time. Sometimes it takes like 5 times with Zoom for the chat pod to open. All right, it's not. We're just going to keep going. I just want to get these teachings recorded, and then we'll do question answer after. So remember, whenever you use the chat pod, it does break the flow. Okay, Dharana Dhyan Samadhi. So you're going to take the Sanyam power in meditation 4, you're putting it right there in the sexual energy. It's not only that, but that's a big part of it. But that's nothing new. It's just refining your understanding of this system. And then teaching you, once you put all that energy there, it's going to want, because it can't go out, it's going to want to go back up the spine. That means all your stuff is going to come up. Every fantasy, every distorted thought, every perverted thought, whatever you want to call these things, it's all going to come up. No judgment, just observe it and keep engaging your practice. Okay, let's keep moving on, then we'll get to Q&A. Next page. Sanyam, you know about, intense concentrated power. Vivekyati. Remember, that's discerning the real from the unreal or truth from illusion. Remember, dealing with this sexual energy is largely dealing with the lower self. So it was a major teaching about higher and lower, or I think I got rid of the chart here. Yeah. In the past training manual, when we did Vivekyati, right, we have that chart about spirit, body, right, or consciousness, object of consciousness. Your sexual energy is an object of consciousness. There's a you observing your sexual energy. What is the teaching in here about Vivekyati? We discern the difference. There's me, and there's what I observe. And then Vairagya, I let go of what I observe. So what does let go mean here? Let go of your preferences, let go of what you think you are as a sexual being. Stop limiting yourself, just breathe and be with it and keep surrendering, giving it to God. It's like, all right, God, yep, ooh, there's sexual energy, okay. Just breathe and be with it, but you're not expressing it at that moment. So you're letting it eventually start moving up the spine. All right, but that's just a little review of the Vivekyati with the teachings of Vairagya and Netsi, right? Not this, not that. And you can apply that if you want. I'm not this sexual thought. I'm not that sexual thought. It doesn't mean you won't express those sexual thoughts, right? You are a sexual being. Go out and have partners or whatever you do. Be with your partner, of course. I'm not condoning any type of sexuality or putting any down. I'm just saying, whatever your thing is, go do your thing. All right, but when you're on the cushion, you could be practicing Netsi. I'm not that fantasy. I'm not that thought. I'm not that sensation. I'm not that horny feeling. It's just, you're the observer of what's going on in there. But again, you're giving it to God, so it can be transformed into something much higher than what you could ever do on your own. Then we have Chit, which is pure consciousness with one T. And then we have Chitta, or I believe that's the way to say it. It's kind of the same word in a sense, but it's not. So Chit in consciousness is pure awareness, but Chitta is these waves of consciousness of your mind, of your emotions, and of your sexual energy. Remember, when we go down, energy starts getting more dense. So we have pure spirit, we have mind, we have emotion, and then we have the body and the sexual energy of the body. It's a very, very, very powerful energy. But when you leak, when you let it go out, when you're only expressing your sexuality or denying it, you never get a chance to go through what we're going to talk about now, which is really like the sublime, mystical, alchemical transformation that leads you into God consciousness. It's why monks and yogis practice celibacy. And on the financial prosperity side of thing, if you read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, I haven't read in a little while, but as I remember, there's a whole chapter on conserving sexual energy, where these giants of industry, these people who made fortunes, stopped wasting their sexual energy. It's taught in Chinese medicine, Taoist practice, of course, because they're aligned, tantric practice, and yes, even financial prosperity. Because while people spend so much energy misusing their sexuality, that could be putting all the energy into something else. I'm not saying being sexual is a misuse. I'm saying people do misuse their sexuality, or at least they go on useless journeys that never lead them to God and just end up giving them diseases and whatnot, or creating lots of problems. So this is one of the best things we can do for humanity, is stop letting distorted sexual energy run our lives. Okay, so Chit with the two T's there, everything that moves and vibrates is that. So we have the observer and we have the energy that's moving around. We want to let the energy moving around purify itself. But the only way to do that, again, is to observe it without acting out on it. Okay, next. The idea of Yogesh Chit Vritti Nirodha, or just the reason I left it here is Nirod. Nirod, remember, is a pulling away from the external world. When we are caught up in something, we give it a lot of energy, right? So if you are, it's an example, you're a tennis player, you want to get really good at tennis, then you're going to get out, right? You get your body, take your body, and you leave the house and you get on the court and you're practicing volleying and drills all day. You're out there doing something about it. You got a lot of energy in tennis. If you want that tennis drop away from your life or to transform into something different, you pull back from it, right? So this is why in the ox herding pictures, if we go here, why this practitioner is so alone, because he's done that for everything. He's in the Nirod state very highly here. This is stage 7. He's pulled back so much that he's not playing tennis. He's not eating Oreo cookies. He's living on the top of a mountain. There's nobody up there to be having sex with anyway, right? He's withdrawn from everything. But think about the person sitting there. He's not asexual. He's just sitting alone on the top of a mountain with his sexual energy. So what does he do with it? The same thing. He's keeping both eyes on God. So you could observe the sexual energy, but you don't have to do anything about it, just like anything else. So Nirod is to pull away. And to pull up and into spirit, not just away, it's not aversion, it's a pulling away into spirit. So you're letting go of what's lower, then you're moving into the higher. Your sexual energy is there, but this sexual energy keeps asking for your attention, just like hunger would, just like thirst would, right? Or if your leg fell asleep, it's going to call your attention. So we learn to pull back to be the witness, and we can look up to God, into the source, into pure consciousness, or we sit up here and we look down. And once you develop the seat of your soul, you look down like, oh, look at that. It's horny. Okay. That's a sexual person down there. Okay. And then you can be with it, but you want to practice Nirod to be able to pull away from it, because while you're pulling your energy out of it, then it's going to rebalance itself in a more harmonious way. It won't stop being sexual, just like pulling your energy out of your hand won't make your hand stop working. You can leave your body and you won't be in your hand. But when you come back into your hand, it's still there, right? Same with the sexual energy. So when you're being with the sexual energy, you can do it from the space of the observer. If you're really caught up in it, then it's very hard to work with it. Okay, so Nirod Vritti, we're pulling up into spirit, and that's how we practice deep samadhi. Right? It doesn't have to be up, it can just be in, but you're moving into spirit, and then you're the observer. You can observe back into spirit or up into spirit, but once you have the seat of the soul, you can observe the sexual energy, and you pulled a lot of energy out of it. Wherever, let's go to the chakra system image for a moment. Wherever you go, your energy will follow and blood flow will follow that. I'm going to repeat that because we're talking about deep sexual energy teachings. Wherever consciousness goes, wherever you go, wherever you put your attention, your energy will follow. Wherever energy goes, blood follows. Now think about when we do meditation number 4. We descend into the sexual energy. Consciousness does go there. Your energy will go there and blood flow will go there. It's very healing. You want that occurring, right? You want energy and blood moving through every part of your body. Right? It shouldn't get stagnant or blocked. Right? So now meditation 4, we're just being with it. We're feeling it there. But be aware, this isn't just ways to have full body orgasms or how to have great sex. This is about how to integrate sexuality in the deepest, most powerful way with God realization. Okay. Vyutan Vritti, remember that's outward oriented consciousness. Nirod Vritti, inward oriented. Yogis, meditators, Anahat meditators, we're very much interested in Nirod Vritti. Again, we're pulling away from the sexual energy. We could observe it. Oh, and then I do want to say with this, wherever consciousness goes, energy will follow. So in the chakra system here, when you're sitting at the seat of your soul up here at the crown, where I got the cursor moving, the Shakti will come up the Sushumna to meet you. You don't have to try to awaken your Kundalini. We've talked about this, and some of you are having Kundalini awakenings. I'm consulting, coaching people now, spiritual counseling, whatever you want to call it. Some of you are having spiritual awakenings and Kundalini awakenings and vibrations, and all this stuff is happening. It's real, and people are opening up. It's awesome. So you don't need me to touch your forehead to awaken your Kundalini. It'll happen if you just keep doing this process. You pull back and observe. The Shakti will hit my nose. The Shakti will come up to meet you. And then if you're not leaking your energy, you're going to have more energy coming up to meet you. And it's extremely powerful stuff. Okay. We have the stages of samadhi, just a quick review for what's relevant to know. Vitark is mostly level 1 of Anahat, where we're dealing. Oh, in the training manual, there was a mistake last time. It's fixed here. But in one of the last videos, there was a mistake. So anyway, let's be sure we teach this properly. So Vitark deals more with the physical, and that's mostly level 1 of Anahat. Vichar deals with the subtle energy bodies, primarily the imagination or the mental level, and that's level 2 of Anahat, right, where we deal with the subtle 3-dimensional grids. Anand is bliss, right? As above, so below. If I'm feeling bliss in my higher chakras, that's like 6th and 7th chakra. 6th chakra, Anand is very much bliss. Again, back to this stage, ox forgotten self alone. Here, this guy or girl, whoever, man or woman, when you're in Anand Samadhi, this is bliss up here. You'll feel it in your higher chakras. But in Anahat meditation, we descend again. So all the bliss comes down to the sexual energy. And then 6th chakra is bliss. 2nd chakra, pleasure. Like, people, hello, nobody gets it. And I understand why, but really, like when you're meditating here at your third eye, pure light, pure bliss. When you bring that back down to the sexual energy, you're taking all of the divine bliss into your sexual organs. All right, we've already been doing that, but we're not done with these teachings. Okay, so Anand Samadhi is very much dealing with level 3 of the sexual energy teachings, because it's all about pleasure and bliss. And to get over the idea that it's not supposed to be, is either pleasure or pain, right? And as soon as you realize you're not guilty, you're not a sinner, you're not a shameful, disgusting masturbator, you're a child of God, and you're a beautiful, divine, sexual being. So we just bring the bliss and the sweetness of who we are to the sexual energy. But remember, I'm not talking too much about 3rd chakra, which is about personal power. Because yes, it can be sweet and beautiful, but there's also tremendous strength in there. But we're just not really touching upon that right now. All right, that's all I want to say for the Samadhi stages. Don't worry about Asmita and Nirvikalp right now. But the point is, as you move through the Samadhi stages, you'll still be a sexual being. Right? In Kevalya Avastha, where you're one with all that is, there's still sexual energy, because that's part of all that is. It's not your sexual energy. It's just there is sexual energy. But in Kaivalya Avastha, with what we're getting into, everything is the same energy. It's not like there's sexual energy and love and God. There's only that. And it's pure bliss. It's pure pleasure. It's pure love. It's pure joy. The sexual energy is perfectly blended with it to where it's not even blended. It's like Ramakrishna would say, you cannot separate water from its wetness. Which is kind of a good pun as well for the sexual teachings. You cannot separate water from its wetness. Right? You cannot separate spirit from bliss or spirit from pleasure. Just nobody talks about it. Okay, so that's those teachings in brief review. So Vitark, the form level, level 1 of Anahat. Vichar, the imagination, mental images level, the subtle energy level, level 2. And then Anand, and then beyond, we're just getting into bliss and pleasure. And then with the out-of-body travel, I'm skipping Asmita intentionally. Just could go to a whole nother teaching, but it's all the same stuff. So I'm just intentionally moving on. Out-of-body practice, you can, I've never really had etheric sex. So there's physical sex, right? Most of us probably have all done that, right? So you know what physical sex is. Then etheric sex, I really wouldn't engage, I've never engaged in that because the etheric body is like this blueprint that manifests the physical, but once you rise above it, you're in the astral body. So I've never bothered with etheric sex, but astral sex, yes. When you're in your astral body, someone else is in their astral body, and you merge. Now, there's a lot to talk about with that kind of thing, but what I'll say is you don't actually have to be out of your body to have that kind of experience. And the person you're merging with doesn't have to be in the same room. Minds are joined. Sanyam power can be put upon someone, ideally consensually, but that's a whole nother discussion. But you can, let's say you're with your partner, but you're not in the same space. All right, so you're on a business trip somewhere else on the other side of the country. You can both go into meditation, you can both connect to each other's energies, and you can absolutely merge your astral bodies together. You'll feel like they're in your space, they'll feel like you're in their space, and you can absolutely merge with somebody and engage these practices that way. So there's a lot to be taught about that, but just open to the idea. Soul travel, remember that's just you as pure consciousness, but you are a lover of God. And I'm saying that sexually. You are a lover, love sex, like you are a lover of God. When you're out of your body, like I say, you should call out for God. And the only sentiment you'll have if you're truly going into God is, I love you. I love you. I want to make love with you. And when God explodes the creation, when God has a cosmic orgasm manifesting everything that is, God says, I want to make love with myself. That's creation. The process of creation is God saying, all right, I'm here all by myself, but I'm really yummy. I want to make love with myself. And then creation occurs. It's called a day in the night, a day and a night in Brahma. Brahma, God, Brahm says, let there be light. And then the night is when it returns back into itself, right? Ascending and descending. God descends into matter and then ascends back into source. The you who's taken that journey of ascending, you're a sexual being, but when you're not in your body, you don't have your physical sexuality with you. Remember, as above, so below. If it exists down here, it must exist up there. All right. So when you drop the physical, whatever manifested pleasure in the physical, that's still there with you, meaning the bliss and love and peace of your own soul, merging back into God. So there's something that happens in mystical literature. It happened for me, when was this? 97, 96? Doesn't matter, but helps me to reference stages. 1996, 95, 96. So about 4 years after my spiritual awakening, there is a period of time in meditation where God is so delicious and so beautiful. And I wasn't in a relationship and I was only meditating. It was when I was doing all the out-of-body travel and teaching it. When I was about 20, 30 years old. And I just said, God, I marry you. That's it. It's the spiritual marriage. It is what happens for legitimate monks and nuns and people who have just surrender their life to God, who are practicing celibacy. And God, like for nuns, Christ becomes your lover. And I don't know how much they want to talk about what that means, but for a nun who's underneath her habit, whatever they wear, underneath the monk's robes, there's a sexual being in there. You can't shut it off. And when a monk says, I am a lover of Jesus, he either suppresses that energy and gets really messed up, or he learns what it's like to fully merge with his beloved. Again, they don't always talk about this on the surface, but there's no way around that. So my point is, sexual energy, or the bliss and pleasure and love of God, is happening everywhere throughout all time and space. Again, it's like God's cosmic play is what they call in the Leela, is what they call it in Sanskrit, God's play. But it's an immensely sexual dance. It's why deep in my soul, I am a gopi. I am a lover of Radha Krishna, which is a very, if you study that stuff, it's a very sexual path. And it's tantric, meaning, it's all about sacred sexuality. Okay, so a lot to cover, but I want you to understand the out-of-body travel can all be connected, just as samadhi can be connected to sex, so can out-of-body travel. In Nirvikalpa, let's not talk about that too much, just like Asmita, the latter stages, yes, they're sexual, but let's not spend too much time with that now. So yeah, with Asmita, with Nirvikalpa, with Kevalya Avastha, these deeper levels, yeah, sexual energy is there, but it's just so incredibly fulfilling. In A Course in Miracles, it says, there's nothing greater, like it just says, the wholly satisfying nature of reality. The wholly satisfying nature of reality. I like to say to people, if you don't realize how incredibly delicious your insides are, if somebody tells you otherwise, they just haven't done the journey. It's worth the price of admission, and there's no sacrifice asked of you. You think celibacy or brahmacharya is a sacrifice, but there's no sacrifice asked of you. You're not letting go of anything valuable. Cosmic consciousness we talked about, but I left it in there just to say, you could have sex outside of your body with other astral beings and experience planets and galaxies, but you can do it in your body too. Like go make love on the beach and be under the moon and realize that's not just a little disc in the sky, it's the moon. You are making love under the moon, right? You're doing it while floating on the, spinning on a planet called Earth, and there's the sun. So you can be cosmic consciousness all the time. And I hope next time you meditate, you just remember, there's the sun. There's a big fireball over there. Right? Like, don't forget, they are in the cosmos. And then, of course, when you get out of your body, you can experience how vast you really are, or can be. And I don't know, to me, cosmic consciousness isn't overtly sexual in any sense, because it's just everything. But like I said, the creation is sexual. And then ascension. So yeah, when you're flying back towards God as God, when you're ascending up through all the levels of creation, right, out of your body, flying towards God, and everything drops away, and there's infinite light. Like I've been saying, the only thing left is I love you. You might not use English, but it'll just be I love you. And that, there's no sexual organs, there's no body, but the union is as deeply sexual as we could ever use the word. Okay. But not the way people think of sexual. All right, so here's advanced sexual energy practices. There aren't actually formal techniques that I'm going to teach you. That stuff you can study on your own through Mantak Chia's works or other tantric texts. So I can allude to those, but generally, and I think we're going to need next week. Let's see where we are. Maybe not. Let's see what we can do in 17 minutes. Before I wrap it up. Okay, so I'm not giving you exact techniques. I'm giving you general ideas of what to do while you're sitting. All right, so this stuff is important right now. Level 1 of Anahat meditation, we know is better for morning practice usually. It's the Vitark level of awareness. We're focused on body and breath. When we're engaging the sexual energy on that level, we're usually dealing with cold Jing or unexcited sexual energy, right? So Jing is the sexual essence. We don't want to waste it. We only get so much of it according to Chinese medicine. There's two types. There is the Jing you can replenish through food and liquid. and life force. And then there's the Jing that you only have so much of, and once it's gone, that's it. It's your kidney essence, and once that's depleted, you start having all the signs of kidney depletion, which we don't have to go into. The point is, it doesn't matter how much you've wasted over your life. The point is just to keep cultivating as much as you can. So while we're doing meditation 4, breathing into the sexual energy, or level 2 of that, which is, I never think of the numbers when I'm sitting. So we have 12 and then 1, 13, 13, 14, 15. This is meditation 16, 4 or 16. Add 12 to it. That was easy. Add 12 to it. So 4 or 16. Whether we're working on meditation 4, the physical component of it, or meditation 16, the energetic component of it, we can do it with what's called cold Jing. I don't like that term, so I put it in quotes. Well, I'm just going to use the term unexcited sexual energy. It means you haven't stimulated yourself or nobody stimulated you. All right, because you can do this with a partner. Right, so yourself or with a partner or more than one person, I don't care. But the point is you can stimulate sexual energy. When we do, then we're dealing with what's called hot Jing or excited sexual energy. I would just say, you can do level 1 with hot Jing. In fact, there's kind of I just typed this up today. I'm gonna say, I don't want to mislead you. Yeah, all right, so you can stimulate sexual energy with any of these, right? So level 1, you can be with that and you're, all right, so yeah, all right. Now we're kind of getting into the practice. What I would recommend when you're going to start getting to the sexual energy teachings is to go through all of level 1, right? Just do on a hot meditation first. If not, it's just masturbation or it's just sex, right? So go through all of level 1 first. And then you would stimulate the sexual energy. Right, whatever you do, I don't care. All right, just do whatever you do that turns you on. Just touching yourself or whatever you use, whatever, whoever you're using, whoever you're playing with. So stimulate sexual energy, but the major idea is don't ejaculate, don't have orgasm. I can mostly speak as a guy, right? So when I say ejaculate, I do mean the same thing for men and women. Don't get to that full sense of release. It's different for women because you can have multiple orgasms and you don't lose as much energy when you do it all. But for a guy, yeah, you can stimulate yourself or somebody else can stimulate you, but don't ejaculate. The teachings on what to do at that moment, which I think are relevant for men and women. We're going to cover some of on the pages to follow, but that's really where you need to study the Tantric and Taoist teachings. But I'll give you some of the hints. Let's jump ahead to that actually. Sexual energy teachings. Here are a whole bunch of things you can know about that you can study on your own. Because I'm obviously not going to demonstrate, right? So I can only tell you, study this stuff on your own. And some of it I've alluded to already for you. So the Tantric practices, a book I really enjoyed is Sexual Energy Ecstasy. It's a really thick book. You don't need to know much more than what's in there. And you can practice all that for the rest of your life. So Sexual Energy Ecstasy. I don't know the author. I haven't been with that book in quite a while. I don't have it in my library anymore. I wonder who has that. But yeah, so that's the book I would recommend for Tantric practice, Sexual Energy Ecstasy. And you'll learn all about full body orgasms and tantric sexuality and being with your partner. Again, I'm not here to teach that stuff. The Taoist practices, just study Mantak Chia's works. I think it's just M-A-N-T-A-K. I think it's just with 2 A's, Mantak Chia, C-H-I-A. And then again, I recommend Cultivating Male Sexual Energy for Men. And I would think, I haven't started it, Cultivating Female Sexual Energy for Women. So check out, and then he has lots of other books. So check that stuff out and you just start doing those practices. The idea is when you're getting towards the point of orgasm, you stop and then you practice some of the stuff we're going to talk about gently, loosely now. The idea, though, you'll see in one of the bullet points, I should have numbered these for you, the bullet points below, it says sublimation of sexual energy. I think maybe you see that highlighting. Sublimation of sexual energy from Jing to Qi to Shen. So what's happening when we stimulate sexual energy, but we don't release it, it's there, right? It's all stirred up inside. I know people have turned this into like eroticism and kink and all that. It's like ways to play your sexuality with that. That's fine. Again, I'm not here to say anything about that or to judge. Um, I'm just saying there's similarities to some of the stuff that's out there that people enjoy. But this is the purest way of understanding this. It's not about kink or whatever. This is just what you'll study in deep Taoist and tantric practices. So you're bringing yourself towards the end of orgasm, you're stopping, and then you have to engage some kind of practice. And what you're doing is you're sublimating. Again, I'll highlight it, hopefully you can see. You're sublimating sexual energy from Jing to Qi to Shen. Okay, so Jing is in the lower chakra regions. That's your sexual energy. When you pull it up the spine to the heart, it's being transformed to Qi, which is a more purified essence of that. So imagine like male ejaculate, male semen, right? That is it's a substance, it's a fluid, right? Where in a sense, not letting that out, we're making it go up the spine. Now, does it go up the spine? Not the physical part of it, but the energetic part of it. We're pulling energy out of the sexual organs. So when we engage meditation 5 and we pull it up the back central channel to the head, we are, stuff to talk about on the other page in a moment, but we are pulling the sexual energy up the spine to the head. And it has to go through the region of the heart, of course, which is important. You're not pulling the physical fluid up there. You're pulling the energy within that fluid up. As it goes up, it goes to the heart and it transforms more into Qi. But remember, not a hot meditation. Meditation 1 is at the hara. Then meditation 2 is at the heart. So we're taking the lower energy, we're bringing it to the heart, and then we're bringing it up to spirit. But once we come back down to meditation 4, then every time, if you want to, whenever you come down here, you're aware of your sexual energy. Inhale, pull it up to, whatever you're doing in any of these meditations now, every time energy is going up and down in this system, it is now infused with sexual energy. It can't not be. And then the Jing, let's go back here. The Jing will transform into Qi and will transform into Shen. It's going to happen naturally. If you understand what's happening and you visualize it or you intend for it, it'll happen faster and easier. This is hard stuff. To purify sexual energy is going to take decades. Really, depending on when you start and how old you are. I started in my 20s. 20s and 30s. Now I feel like I'm getting towards mastery with it, but not in my 20s and 30s. Okay, so Jing to Qi to Shen. So Jing here, Shen, Qi at the heart, more subtle energy, Shen, spirit. So that energy returns to spirit. So more dense in the fluid, more subtle in the heart, Qi or love, love and Qi. And then that all gets pulled up to spirit. And then we recirculate it. We come back down to the sexual energy with meditation 6. And then that nourishes the kidneys. So, again, this is like 10 to 20 years of practice because your understanding will deepen so much about who you are and what's going on. Like most people just don't know about this stuff and they don't teach it in high school and college. So it's a very new way of thinking. It's a very specialized form of training, really. Okay. That's good. So hold that thought. We talked about the cranial and the sacral pumps, or sacral and cranial pumps. Remember the sacral pump, we have the tailbone. All right, so the tailbone, like here's the sexual energy. The tailbone tucks into that and we pull it up. So by tilting, I can't show you, by tilting the pelvic girdle forward, we pull the tailbone up and we're pulling the sexual energy up the spine. So I highly encourage you, if you don't already know, go research online. There'll be articles about it, maybe videos, I don't know, but I haven't seen videos on it. I'm sure they exist. Research the cranial and sacral pumps in the microcosmic orbit. And when you are tensing your body and pulling, because we didn't talk about that yet, these Taoist and tantric practices, At the moment of orgasm, you tense all your muscles. You can tense your legs, your arms, you make fists, and you pull that energy, squeezing, tensing your whole body. You pull the energy up the spine. And you engage the sacral pump. So you're pulling it up the spine. You engage the cranial pump. So your head goes back and catches it. You're pulling that energy up your spine to your head while tensing your whole body. Tense, 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 tense. Pull it up, pull it up, pull it up. And then the moment you exhale, you do it. How do I verbalize that? You don't release it. You contain it. You hold it. You become one with it. Again, I think we're going to do another class on this, which we scheduled in the last email I sent out. I think it's going to be worth. Yeah, we're going to do that. I don't know if we'll need 3 hours, but we scheduled next week. We'll do next week. I might be in a different location, but that's cool. We'll make it work. So yeah, learn about the sacral and cranial pumps. Let's talk briefly about it. Then you could research more about Mula Bandha. Mul, we've talked about it a little, means root. First chakra, root locking. And bandha means, bond is the way to say it in Sanskrit, I believe. Bond is locking, is a lock or a seal. I remember studying these in college, my major was, studying this stuff, right? And I didn't get it. It took many years to understand the importance of it. So Mula Bandha, root locking. Like I said, we're sealing off the energy from leaking out. But it's actually a way of, it's like Kegel exercises, which I'm not very familiar with, but I know it's similar. You're tensing the lower area of your body, the perineum between the vagina and the anus, or testicles and the anus. You're tensing that and essentially kind of pulling up internally so that locks. So when you're close to orgasm, but you stop and you don't release, you tense your whole body, you inhale deeply, you pull Mula Bandha. You're doing root locking. So all I can say is go research it. There's not much more I can explain about how to do it without like sitting in the same room. And even then I can only kind of use my hand. And, if you had a tissue, like here's a tissue. If you imagine this is the bottom of your perineal floor, at the very base where your tailbone is, when you engage Mula Bandha, it's kind of like you're pulling up in that region. There are muscles that go down in that area. And when you tense, you're pulling those up. So you're locking that area. Okay, so the energy won't go down and out because it might be that tendency to want to release at that time, but you tense and pull up. Then the energy starts shooting up your spine. That's when you'll engage the next one, Uddiyana Bandha, which is really essentially just tensing as well. But there, what you're tensing are your obliques largely, not necessarily rectus abdominis, your six-pack area. You're tensing your obliques because you want to keep your stomach soft and relaxed just reasonably so you can breathe when you are breathing, because you can breathe while pulling Uddiyana Bandha. So it's largely a pulling up in your obliques, like sucking that gut from the sides. And while you do that, it pulls up on Mula Bandha as well. So you're root locking, right, at the bottom, and then you're pulling up on the obliques, and everything just shoots up the spine. You want it, for the most part, to go all the way to the head. However, there's what's called Jalandhara Bandha, which is throat locking. If you want to contain that energy in the torso, there's reasons for it. It feels really good. You can play with it if you like, but generally you don't have to do it. Just let it go up through the throat, up to the crown, and that's where it wants to go. But if you lock here and lock at the base, all the energy stays in the torso. And that's just sweet, but I can't really tell you there's any major reason for it, except this feels really good. So what essentially happens with all of this is you're stimulating yourself or with your partner. You're getting close to the point of orgasm, but then you stop. Sometimes it's really intense. You have to stand up. Your feet are flat on the floor. You can feel at the base of your feet is kidney 1. You can probably research that. Acupoint kidney 1 is the beginning of the kidney meridian. It's called the bubbling wellspring, and it is where you're connected to earth energy, even if you're not on the ground, right? If you're on the second floor of a building, whatever, you're just going to stand up, tense your entire body, legs, arms, make fists with thumbs inside, tense and pull the energy up the spine, pull it up through your legs, through the bubbling wellspring, pull Mula Bandha, so root locking, pull Uddiyana Bandha. Don't do Jalandhara Bandha. Keep your throat open. Pull all the energy up to your head, but breathe it and feel your whole body fill with that sexual energy. Hold as long as you can. When you exhale, do it very mindfully and slowly, just like, oh, and you'll feel the energy permeate your whole body. When you get good at it and practice it enough, that'll be the first full body orgasm without ejaculating. And then you could go back and keep meditating with that energy there. Like you could re-engage all of level 1 again with all that energy in your system. And then, or you could stimulate yourself or with your partner, stimulate the energy again. I really arouse that for the second round before orgasm, before ejaculation. Stop, tens, do the same process, and it gets higher each time. So if you do that 5 to 10 times, by the time you're like at the 10th round, and however you're working with that sexual energy, it is so orgasmic. It's just like mind blowing. The idea though, is not to release that, just to, and it's hard. It's very hard to go to sleep when you're that, so much energy in your system. That's a practice. It's still a practice for me. I don't always sleep as well as I could because there's so much energy in the system. But there's no way I want to be releasing that. It's too good to keep it inside. Any lack of sexual how do I say this? Any lack of, sexual stimulation with a partner that may occur because of being a celibate monk, you ain't missing a thing. My insides are so much better than anybody who says regular sex. I would much rather feel what I feel internally than just a genital orgasm, and all the pleasure that goes with that whole process. I'm telling you, the mystical path of working with the sexual energy is far more delicious. But you can have both. It's not mutually exclusive. I'm just saying there's no sacrifice in finding what's inside of your system and learning how to work with it. So I just gave you here the essence of it. Let's conclude, but we'll meet again next week because I feel like we're almost done, but I don't want to feel like we're rushing. So, we'll just continue more on the technical side of this. I want you to understand how to integrate it into Anahat, give you time to ask questions. What we could do next week? We'll make it a lot more Q&A time, right? Just finish up what we got to teach, summarize, and then let you guys do Q&A with plenty of time. So that sounds like a good plan. Okay, so level 1 of Anahat, you can just do it with cold Jing, unexcited sexual energy. And you could do level 1 with cold Jing, level 2 with cold Jing, or level 1 with hot Jing, level 2 with cold Jing. The idea is, as you're getting more advanced in your practice, to do hot Jing or excited sexual energy is to stimulate yourself, but then to re-engage your practice, which would involve Anahat meditation. I'm moving through all the spectacles, testicles, wallet, and watch. But go through the star meditation. That's how you do the cross, right? But we're much more involved than just the cross on your body here. So go through the whole Anahat system and feel what it's like to move excited sexual energy through this system. And then when you get to level 3, you'll see on the screen, level 3 Anahat meditation samadhi practice. Again, seriously stimulated sexual energy, but then go into samadhi and feel what that's like. So level 1 and 2, we don't really have to be in any deep level of samadhi, but like you see on the screen, level 1 is the Vitark level of samadhi. Level 2 is the Vichara level of samadhi. And then level 3, really, you're dealing with Anand, Asmita, Nirvikalp, Kevali Avastha, all these more advanced samadhi stages. You can still work with the excited or stimulated sexual energy. The other thing, where is it? I'm going to finish up, but we'll, review all this next time. I don't think I wrote it down. I didn't write it down. I see 4 stages of working with sexual energy for me over the years. Number 1, the unexcited sexual energy. Right? I'm doing meditation, focusing my sexual organs, but I haven't done any stimulation. Then, or nobody stimulated me. Then level 2, stimulation has occurred, but you're engaging your practice. I would say level 3, although it's not necessarily measurable by what's on the screen there. The third level of working with it is what I've been calling with you guys, I've talked about, is active sexual energy. It's just there all the time because you haven't released it, right? So that's great. Like as a guy, you're always ready to go. Your partner's always happy to be with you because you didn't release it. It's always there, right? You can always get aroused. You can always enjoy it anytime you want to. It's not like you ejaculate, then you got to wait 5 days to recharge or whatever. However healthy you are with that, but you don't really have to release that, but that takes years of practice. So by the way, if you just need to ejaculate, this is too much, then go ahead. It's a practice. No guilt, no shame. Don't hurt yourself. Don't do anything weird. Just if you feel like, all right, I practiced for a little bit, but I can't even sleep if I don't ejaculate, go ahead. Or I'm so horny, I need to ejaculate. I can't even think, I need to ejaculate. Go ahead. You can ask questions about this, but I don't want you ever to feel stressed or deprived, or go enjoy yourself fully sexually, but just consider this as spiritual practice and sacred sexual practice. And you'll get good at something you practice for 10 or 20 years. Okay, so number 1, unexcited sexual energy. Number 2, excited sexual energy. Number 3, active, it's there all the time. And number 4, which, as we're getting towards these teachings now, if I had a word for it, the word is kind of like mastery of it, but I never want to claim that. It's like active all the time, but it's good. Active sometimes is really stressful because it's like, oh God, there's all this energy. What do I do with it? But like the number 4, like mastery of it is just, there's peace, there's bliss, there's love, there's God, and there's sexual energy. And it's there all the time. It's like it's there all the time. And it's like the same bliss you would feel in an orgasm is there all the time. That's what I'm saying. Like the active sexual energy, the mastery of that active sexual energy, it's delicious all the time. You wouldn't even have to have sex. You don't have to have sex. It's so good inside of you. Again, nobody can see it. They wouldn't know it's happening. But again, I'm walking around the grocery store. I'm like, like everybody else is just all miserable. But my insides are just so delicious. So again, we'll spend another class on this, just helping to get the more subtleties of what's going on, how to engage it in a practice, specifically in on a hot practice, and then we'll have a lot of Q&A time. All right, with that said, I'm going to go to Q&A now. So if you need to go, class dismissed. Let's go to full screen. All right. So everybody's still here. I didn't get to see who's in the chat pod. So go ahead, ask questions, share what you'd like to. We'll keep recording. I won't use your name. And I'm fully here for you guys. So we're almost done with level 3, but yeah, we'll take one more class. Someone said, is it different for a codependence because I cannot focus on myself and my body, but only being the observer, basically watching like a movie? Is it going to change with meditation? I'm not sure I fully understand. Feel free to clarify for me or email and we'll go in more detail there. Is it different for codependence? What I can say about codependency is the more you do on a hot meditation, you won't ever be codependent. I can't even conceive of that word. I live on the top of a mountain by myself. I don't need anybody to feel amazing, right? So you won't be codependent the more you do the practice. So I wouldn't label you or anybody as codependent. That's a temporary state of being unfulfilled. When you're deeply fulfilled inside, that's not who you are, right? So you are completely self-sufficient in yourself, no doubt. And then, yes, you could observe your inner being, and the inner being of a codependent who wants to go out and try to find someone. Like, I can't be fulfilled without another person. Just for that hour on the cushion, right? I'm encouraging you guys to, this is an online monastery, right? We're talking monastic level practice, but anybody could do this. So I'm seriously encouraging an hour morning, an hour evening. During that time, when your inner being is like, oh, but I need him or whatever, I need that person. Don't move, don't call him, don't email, don't text. But oh my God, that fantasy with him is so amazing. Don't move, just sit on the cushion. And that energy will gradually transform itself. But after the hour, good, go give him a call, have fun. Right? But during that time, what's more important, excuse my way of saying this, is not getting laid. What's more important is knowing God, right? But after that hour of practice, you're like, I gotta go, do something, then go ahead. But yeah, you will be dissolving codependency by just sitting and watching your stuff and then working with these practices to find the peace, the love, the joy, the bliss inside of yourself. And the immense pleasure. So when you put your head in the cushion, in the pillow at night and you're lying down, you're like, wow, I just love what it feels like in here. Yeah, I used to call in my earlier stages of practice the sleep demon. I'd be meditating God, I'd be so blissful. I'm like, oh my God, I love you so much. This is so good. And then the body would be getting tired. I'd feel the need for sleep. I'm like, the sleep demon. It's like, I didn't want to ever stop blissing out in God. Now I actually really enjoy sleep. But yeah, back in the day, didn't want to stop that at all. Okay. Excuse me, I just got funny. Thank you for allowing an honest conversation about our sexuality and including the importance of a sacred focus. Right on. My pleasure. And I didn't invent the system, right? It's just like all this unfolds in me and I share it with you guys. And yeah, it's just being radically honest about being a human being who has sexual energy. We all do, right? So my pleasure like literally my pleasure. You said like people pleasers to answer the codependent thing. Yeah, same thing. You're not a people pleaser. You could observe the part of you who wants to please people. So pull back, like you're talking about, observe. Oh, there's a lower self, like my inner child wants to please mommy and daddy or someone else, right? Whoever your inner child's trying to please to try to find love. Just during that hour where you're not moving in the cushion, stop it. All right, the inner child's like, but if I just can be nice to that person, I'll get love. But you can't do that for the hour. You're not allowed to move. That not allowed to move in the cushion is so important. I would encourage you to set a timer. If you're really serious about moving into stage 4 of the ox herding pictures, right, the discipline required for intense spiritual growth, yeah, set a timer. And for whatever time you allot, just 15 minutes, fine. Just for 15 minutes, do not move. And then once you get good at that, build up like a half hour and 45 minutes, and then like an hour. An hour is a really good time frame for practicing out of hot. And then during that hour, you're not allowed to people please. That'll eventually burn away. You observe it, and then you keep letting it go. Great. And what you'll find inside is so good, you don't want to go outside of yourself anyway for that kind of thing. Okay, so just thank yous and good nights and thank yous. Not sure what you mean by being in love with God or making love to God. If I have to talk about that, I will. Well, God is real. There is something called God, and God is the beloved, and you're the lover. So there's different kind of relationships you can have with God. You can be a servant of God. No sexuality, no devotion, just I'm a servant of God. So I do my work. Like, let's say you're a doctor or a nurse, right? You show up to the office, you help the patients, you do it in honor of God, and you're a servant of God. Beautiful. Like, thank God. Keep doing that. That's more the path of karma yoga. Karma yoga, a path where yoga meaning oneness with God, and karma meaning action. Your life is dedicated to action, service of God, and you serve God as the many beings. You help the homeless, you build the food soup kitchens, you do whatever you have to do to help people, or animals or whatever, or plants or the planet. That's karma yoga. Then you have like some like Gyan Yoga, or it could be considered, let's use the term Gyan Yoga, where you just sit and meditate. And it's like, I'm a meditator, I put my attention on pure consciousness, and I just meditate on pure consciousness. But Ramakrishna, he said, oh mother, please don't make me a dry yogi. God could also be known, so there's different relationships. You could have a relationship like you're the child of God and God is your father or mother, but you approach it like as a child, and that's not necessarily sexual. It's just, all right, God, I'm your child, guide me. I'm confused, talk to me, help me. I'm your child, I need you, I don't know what to do. There's approaching God as child. But then there's bhakti yoga, where you approach God as the devotee and you become a devotee of God. And that's a lover of God. And that path usually starts with a mantra. So in the Hare Krishna movement, which is Vaishnavism, Hare Krishna is it's a very specific form of Vaishnavism. It's the ISKCON movement. You can study ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. That's its own branch that was brought over here, like in the 60s or something. But Vaishnavism, beyond the Hare Krishna movement, is the lovers of Krishna, or more specifically, the lovers of Radha Krishna. So and not just I, because I am a bhakti, I am a devotee of God, I am a gopi of heart. So gopis are the milkmaids who love God as Krishna. It's a way of developing a relation. And now this isn't the only way, I'm just speaking from my own experience, and then I'll tell you about other ways. As a bhakta, as a devotee of God, as a lover of God, you can study the life and times, the stories of Radha and Krishna. So Radha is female, Krishna is male, and they're lovers. They make love, and they're very beautiful. When you see the pictures of them, they're really hot. they're gorgeous. You can imagine in Tantra that let's say you're a guy, you can imagine being Krishna, and you can imagine your partner is Radha, and it's like you two are having sacred sex, right? Radha, Krishna, lover and lover, or a lover and beloved being together. So your partner is like, let's say, like I'm a guy, let's say I'm with Radha, right, with a woman, then Radha, Krishna, we're being together, and we're like, I can study and she can study the life of Radha and Krishna, and they're frolicking and making love and all things they do, and then we can kind of play that out in tantric sex play, if you will, in tantric sexuality. But as you start developing that for another person, which is usually how tantric practice works, you then can direct that same lover energy towards God. And that often starts like having mantra or sacred songs, singing to God. But you'll see, this goes really far. Like when you put a candle on the altar or a flower on the altar, you're giving it to your lover, to Krishna. So in Christianity, Christ is the way to God. So in many ways, that's a bhakti religion, that the Christian is loving Jesus. But what I'm talking about is the very deep monastic type practice when the nun or the monk is loving Jesus and realizes I'm very sexual and I really love God and I'm loving God as Jesus. Like you have to reconcile, because you're either going to suppress your sexuality about you and Jesus, or you're going to start to ask Jesus, what do I do with that? And that's when the Holy Spirit can come in and start to transform you in a way that will feel very pure. But you wouldn't talk about it with others because you can't say I'm having sex with Jesus, right? Nobody would talk that way. I had a good friend, not a good friend, just somebody I met in college. Again, I was a religion major, so I studied the Hare Krishna movement a lot. I met this guy, he was homosexual, and he was in the Hare Krishna movement. And Krishna is, very beautiful. And he said, Matthew, I got like this problem. I don't know what to do because I'm supposed to love Krishna, but he is gay. So he's like, I'm gay and I love Krishna. And the Hare Krishnas, that wasn't okay on the surface. I guarantee you, every single Hare Krishna, whether they're gay or straight or whatever, who loves Krishna has to deal with that at some point. But now that's a relationship with a personal form of God, where you're actually kind of, in a sense, visualizing. It's a vichara level of practice. You're visualizing your chosen deity. We talked about that. It's called Ishwar Pranidham in the Yoga Sutras, or your Ishtadevta. The way you're approaching God in form, right? Because you're visualizing someone to make love to. It's how can you conceive of that as a human being without someone to make love to? But as we practice a non-samadhi, I'm that someone, right? I'm meditating on Krishna, or to me, it's Radha Krishna. It's masculine, feminine. So I'm focusing on Radha. I'm focusing on the divine feminine. I'm falling in love with that energy. And it becomes very real. Like I said, like making love with Kali is a very real experience. The gods and goddesses in Jesus and all of them, they exist. Anybody who says Jesus isn't sexual has no idea what a child of God is. And Jesus is a child of God, right? So in A Course in Miracles, he says, I'm not interested in sharing my body with you, but that doesn't mean he's not deeply sexual. But again, he's transformed it in the way we've been talking about. I'm sure the energy of the being that we call Jesus has transformed his energy in the highest way possible. But anyway, while you have a relationship with someone, lover, eventually God becomes a beloved. So you can use form, like a personal notion of God, to love God in that way. And the purest I know is the Radha Krishna Bhakti tradition, which is again Vaishnavism. Now, again, on the surface, you might not get this, but go deep enough and everybody's going to encounter that, wow, I'm sexual, I'm a loving being, I love God. And then eventually you just have to ask God what I do with that. But through the personal, you'll encounter the impersonal. So when I say I'm a lover of God personally, yes, that's the Radha Krishna approach, or the tantric approach. When you're with a partner, that person becomes God. Right? When you're making love with someone else, making love, You should be loving that person with all your being and merging with that person. Sex is to merge with that person, right? And that's lover, beloved. And lover, you love the beloved so much that you become the beloved. Then you can, so that could be with the person in tantric sex. Then when you take you towards the personal nature of God with sex, then you're loving your chosen ideal. And it doesn't have to be Radha, Krishna. There's lots of great gods and goddesses you can enjoy, or whatever, whoever you put your attention on. But then I would say through that, or you could skip that and just go right to the impersonal union with God. The impersonal union is I am pure soul. God is infinite spirit. I love that. I merge with that. But there's no form, there's no sexual organs. It's just I'm the lover, I'm the soul. God is the beloved, God's infinite spirit. And I want my soul to merge into God. And that's the deepest union. That's ascension, by the way. Ascension is when you as the lover merge fully into God as the beloved. But it's not sexual in the way humans think of it, because there's no body, there's no sexual organs, and there's no form. So even the form of Radha or Krishna or whoever you're grooving on, you'll drop that form and move into the formless. But yeah, it's all about mystical union. And Tantra is about mystical union with your partner, or with the chosen religious ideal, or with that which is beyond all of the ideas that you can come up with, which is God beyond the beyond. So merging into God beyond the beyond is the highest form of Tantra. And essentially that's what it means, making love to God. All right, thank you. That's a good one. Best sex ed class ever. Awesome. Yeah, I knew we needed to get to this, obviously, and I enjoy how it's unfolding. So yeah, let's stay with it a little longer. Somebody said, do you mean cherishing God? Same question, just ask for an explanation. Cherishing God or commitment to God? Both. I hope my answer made that more clear now. Do I cherish God? Of course. There's nothing to cherish more. Like there's the only reality. God by definition is the one reality. You should cherish reality, right? Because reality is, like I'm helping you guys to see, if you haven't seen, like reality is light and love and peace and joy and bliss and pleasure and divine guidance and abundance. You should always want reality. So yeah, I cherish God. And then I'm committed to God, yes. So the spiritual marriage is when you say, okay, I don't care about anything else. If you bring people to me and you want me to have sex with them, whatever. But like, I just want you, God. If you bring students to me, I will teach them. If you tell me to clean this toilet, I'll clean this toilet. I'll do whatever you say. I've surrendered to God, but all I want is God. Like that's what a deep mystic said. I would encourage everybody who's interested in this level of the path to study the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. It's written by a beautiful saint named Mahendrath Gupta. He goes by the name M out of humility. So he authored the book M, but it's on YouTube on audiobook now. I've been listening to it a lot lately. It's very beautiful. So read and study the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. You hear about his stories about making love with God and being a devotee of God and being a child of God. There was a time where he became a gopi and he just like completely took on the role. He became Hanuman, the monkey devotee, totally took on the role. He practiced the non-dual merging into God. He just kept practicing all the different ways to know God, because every religion has their own like flavor. And he found enlightenment in almost every religious tradition because he already had it. So he could just kind of step into the different systems. So study that if you want to really get a sense of a great saint. He was primarily a devotee of Kali. Because I studied him a lot, I got a very good sense of Kali energy, and Kali's intense energy. That's a whole nother discussion. So you could ask sometime, what is it like to make love with Kali? It's a whole nother realm. Somebody said, thank you. Yes, about the codependent. Yes, very serious. This is important part of my transformation and rebooting my mind. The idea of fasting is really valuable, not just from food, but fast from sex for a while. I'm not saying you have to be abstinent forever, but here, one of my life principles is kind of like a celibate abstinent idea. But I use the word abstinent in my teachings because what I'm saying is I will abstain from anything that keeps me from my path, anything that keeps me from God or my Dharma. I'm not doing, right? If something is a useless journey, a waste of time, it's going to create more karma, I just don't do it. I abstain from it. So if you abstain from sex, just say, all right, 6 months, I'm not going to be with anybody. I got to heal myself. So I'm going to stop creating karma. I'm going to stop attracting the wrong people. fast from it, take a break from it, be a monk, be a nun for a while, and just be like, I can handle it. Get on the cushion and realize how miserable you are, how lonely. I'm not saying this is one person, how lonely you are, how codependent you are, how clingy you are, how unfulfilled you are. And you're going to hate me while you're sitting there in stillness and all your stuff is there and you can't escape it. But that's the stuff that needs purification. You'll never know it if you keep going outside of yourself to try to find pleasure. I mean, it's okay. I've been saying through the whole class, it's okay to have sex. But if you choose to be celibate for a while, to abstain from that, right? Like, let's say you're alcoholic. And you say, Matthew, what is the deep meditative way to get over alcohol? Don't drink. Now, what does that mean? Like, how do you stop smoking? One of my great teachers, he's like, you want to know how to stop smoking? Don't smoke. But obviously, so how do you do that? You get on the meditation cushion, you don't move. And while that part of you is like, but I need a drink, don't move. After an hour, when you are absolutely just crazy for that vodka, then go ahead, have the vodka. Because, but for an hour, you didn't let it run the show. Next day, do it for 2 hours. Don't let it run the show. Eventually, the part of you that wants that external thing will burn away. So what are we fasting? What are we really renouncing? The false self, the self who thinks you need alcohol, the self who thinks you need cigarettes. Just stay on the cushion for an hour and don't move. While you're not moving, the Shakti must come up your spine and purify you because you're not letting it out and you're not, remember, don't suppress and don't act out. So if you got a codependent part of your psyche, you need to let go of the codependent part of your psyche. How do you let it go? You have to not do what it wants to do. And that's why I said, you're going to hate me for that time period when like, oh man, I don't want to stay on the cushion. I hate this. I'm miserable. You need to sit through the misery until that block clears, right? So it's like if you're afraid, you actually kind of put yourself into that situation so you can feel the feeling. I was terrified of public speaking when I started spiritual teaching at 23 years old. I was really nervous, but I forced myself to do it because I knew if I didn't, I'd be acting on the fear. And if I suppressed and denied it. So one of my first lectures, I just said to the whole audience, I'm like, I'm nervous right now. But that was great because it made space for that energy and the energy will purify itself. So the same way that we purify sadness and anger and fear and guilt and all that stuff, and we purify negative beliefs and emotions and behaviors, is we stay on the cushion and we just don't move. And by not moving, when part of you wants to, that part has to transform. That's alchemy. That's the mystical transformation that occurs when you're not letting yourself off the cushion. All right, awesome. Okay, I think I'm getting it better. Thanks. Okay, sure, of course. Someone said part of shadow work, like taking control of the mind by the spirits. Yeah, sure. All right, so yeah, same person briefly here. Shadow work. You got a shadow side. Why? Well, because you suppressed it and pushed it away. Now you're sitting still in meditation. In meditation, you can't avoid your shadow. Darkness can't hide. It's hiding because you push it away. Stop pushing it away and she'll be right there. This is a woman who asked the question. Sorry, she'll be right there and you'll be like, oh, that's really disturbed. That's uncomfortable. I don't like her. Well, stop not liking her. Just learn to love her. Make space for her. So it's your inner child, right? And this part comes up and she's sad. Now you said like taking control of the mind by the spirit. Not really. You're going to pull back and observe. Just observe. The shadow self has a lot of emotion to her, and your mind is going to talk about all that. Just observe. You don't have to do anything. By observing, the lower self will transform itself. Just pull back and watch. So we don't control the shadow. We observe what used to be a shadow that's now been brought to consciousness. Like your shadow self was really angry at people, but you had to admit that she's angry. So you're like, all right, she's angry. And then you watch her. And now what are you letting go of? That. You're letting that just be there, but it will burn away. When it transforms and burns away, that's a sanskar, a blockage in your energy flow that got purified. More light will come through that channel. And then another part of the shadow comes out. You're like, oh, that one's all messed up. Okay, but you're observing it. You don't judge it. It's just, there she is. Breathe and feel. And after you sit on the cushion for however long it takes, doesn't matter how long it takes. This is your job. It's not like you do it sometimes. Eventually you learn to do it all the time. So you're just like, okay, that's there. It's going to take as long as it takes to burn away. But once it does, that channel is open. It'll never get blocked again. Eventually, there are no more blocks in the system. All right, so never ever suppress anything again, because that's what creates the shadow side. All right, so you embrace all of who you are, and the best way to do it is sit still on the cushion where you can't escape. Right? You just have to sit still on the cushion. It'll get hot inside. You'll feel warmth because the Shakti is hitting the blockage. The Shakti hits the Sanskar. The Shakti hits the blockage. It starts cooking it, but eventually it purifies it, and it comes through as pure light. Then that light comes up to meet consciousness, Shiv Shakti. The Shakti purifies the block, comes through, and then eventually the Kundalini, which is all that energy, is just one pure column of light moving up and down through your whole being with no blockage. That's worth the price of admission. Okay, thank you. Rhythmical breathing is okay, right? Yeah, breath work, like we do it, always breathing, just breathe, like, never hold your breath, like, except when we're doing deep Kumbhak pranayam, then we do kind of hold the breath in meditation. But no, when you're working with emotion, never hold your breath. And if you learn how to do, which, I think this person's that far in our hypnotherapy training, but in our hypnotherapy training, I teach breath work. And that's a way to amplify all this energy to purify your system. So yeah, the breath is intimately connected to your life force. It's intimately connected to your emotions. And yeah, you need to breathe through the painful stuff coming up. Just sit still, keep breathing, feel, you're pulling back and watching. It'll burn away the blockage. The light comes through and the blockage is gone for good. You never have to analyze it or do anything. Hypnotherapy, the way I teach it, is a way to clear those blocks through facilitation. So you can speed up the process of clearing the blocks with good facilitation, like breath work or regression. Those are the major ways to clear those blocks. But there's a lot of ways in our hypnotherapy school about how to clear the sanskars. But on your own, which is a full-time job, like I said, just be with whatever's coming up inside of you as much as it takes. All right, great. Like a Kriya type breath. Yeah, sure. Anything that's going to stimulate the life force energy, whatever techniques it's all good, but you don't have to try that hard. Just try not to be the doer. When I say, Holy Spirit, choose for God for me, if I got a block, Spirit comes in, it shows me the block. I'm like, oh, okay. And then the block is cleared. And then, so just don't try too hard. You need to learn to surrender to God to do this. There really is something called God, and God is wiser than you are. And it's like when you have a wound on your hand, you don't take a toothpick and try to manipulate the cells to heal themselves. The Shakti knows how to heal your blockages. But you start touching it, you start messing with it, you break it, you buy it, you touch it, you own it. You're better off just pulling back and watching, and watch the Shakti purify your blocks. But the more you breathe, the more Shakti is moving through your system. So very important that we breathe. Yeah, co-creator being the co-creator. Right. So I wouldn't encourage you to think of a co-creator model there. I would just encourage you to think of, I'm the observer, and that's you're the higher self. You are the higher self. You don't have you have a higher self, but don't say I have a higher self. I am the higher self. I'm observing the lower self, which is the body, emotions, and mind, or your inner child or your shadow self. Observe that, human, but don't ask who the co-creator is. You're the observing consciousness. You've already been created by God. And now you got the stuff that you're observing. Just pull back and watch. And if you do Anahat meditation, you'll always be purifying your meridians without being overly gimmicky. So honestly, Anahat meditation, sitting in the cushion like I've been talking about, will burn through your blocks, and you don't have to learn fancy breathwork techniques. Although pranayam, kriya, rebirthing, holotropic breathing, integrated breathing, all that stuff will speed up your evolution. But yeah, I'm just encouraging you, don't be too manipulative about your own energy. Really just surrender and trust. Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody. Let's wrap it up. It's been, 3.5 hours. Thank you all. I will see you next week at our regular meeting, and that should conclude all the stuff and give you plenty of Q&A time. And then we'll give you a month off before we open it up to the teacher trainer level. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll stop recording, then I'll still be right here if there's any feedback or questions or anything at all. So good night, all. Thank you.